On Thursday, the 30th of September, Chevrolet will introduce a whole new kind of six-passenger automobile. A truly beautiful car that's both right for the times and right for the people. One with even more headroom, more rear seat legroom, and more trunk room than last year's full-size Chevrolet. The new Chevrolet. It's more than a new car. It's a whole new ballgame. September 30th at Chevrolet showrooms everywhere.
Come, enter the halls of medicine. Bring your sore and scratchy throat. Bring your cough. Bring your nose when it feels stuffy. Because the halls of medicine are Hall's Vapor Action Cough Suppressant Tablets. They quickly soothe your throat, quiet your cough, and make your nose feel clearer. Hall's Vapor Action Cough Suppressant Tablets. Come to the halls of medicine to feel better fast.
We all have a face that we hide away forever. That we take ourselves to show ourselves when everyone is gone. Some more satin, some more steel, some more silk, and some more leather.
They're the faces of the stranger, Dion. But we'd love to try them on.
Woohoo!
Don't be afraid. Da, da, da.
I used to believe I was such a great romancer. And I came home to a woman that I could not recognize. So we probably just copyrighted the crap out of that by accident.
Oh, yeah.
That was fair use, though, because it's either satire or we were paying homage.
Yeah, true.
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
also clearly very linked to the subject that we're discussing today.
Oh, that is true. Holy crap. The faces of the stranger.
Murder by
Oh, we
illusion.
love to try them on. Murder by illusion. Woo-hoo-hoo. Don't be afraid to try again. Okay. Welcome to Saturday Night Movie Sleepovers.
I'm Jay Blake, and with me as always,
Dion Baia. That's me. And we are here today. Back again, and we're doing an old throwback. We're doing a format we haven't came back to for many moons. Many moons we haven't done this format. We
we did it last summer. Not that long ago.
did we do two together?
Yeah, we did Wizard of Oz and Return to Oz.
Ah, for fuck's sake! You're right. Never mind.
for
I was
fuck's
thinking it
sake.
hasn't been since. But photos. Beep 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 beep. That's our old Scotty joke. Remember, Scotty? We need I can't do it, Captain. You need to do it. We used to get a lot of traction out of that one. But Captain, the dinner thing, Christmas, do it, Scotty. Foot. This is the crew. Scotty's like, come on! I was still talking to him. I was thinking back that we haven't done it since Ninja Turtles, because back then we did the double feature of Ninja Turtles and Secret of the Ooze. And
We did Ninja Turtles and a little epilogue of Secret of the Ooze.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we should have did a little more of a we were still feeling it out. You know, it was
That's
late
okay.
one
I mean, really,
Saturday late night. Yeah,
all the setting of the table was the same.
Oh, yeah, that was true. It was for both. Yeah, and then maybe if you broke down the minutes per first movie to second movie, you'd you'd see what we were talking about here. But especially last year when we did Wizard of Oz, you're right. We probably that was a good we spent on Wizard and Return.
Yeah, we probably
fair
spent
point.
about
And then all the setup
4
of that.
hours equally on each movie.
Exactly. And then it was my fault. We were naming the wrong Brahms story. We had the wording wrong of the original. It was like the Wonderful World of Oz, but we were calling it the World of Oz or something.
Whatever.
And then
Close
we got another
enough.
email that Then remember somebody left a message like, their Wizard of Oz show is full of misquotes and misinformation, fake news. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, what do you
Jesus,
want? What do you want for nothing?
Like 2 weeks. Yeah, what do you want for nothing? I was like,
we never said we were
3 weeks
experts.
of my life.
We never claimed to be authorities on the subject.
Blake bought the entire Brahms series and read every 20 books or whatever it was for the whole darn thing.
Took me about
and I went back
6
and watched
days.
that. And I watched that whole animated show. Remember they had the animated Wizard of Oz show?
The Italian.
Watch that whole sucker.
The Italian splatter adaptation. That would be amazing. Really like cool. An Italian horror movie version of Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, like a dirty a horror. Well, that Return to Oz is a horror, but yeah, like a exploitation movie. Like in the levels just to get 35-year-old or 40-year-old Argento to direct it.
I mean, that shit's got to be
some real
public domain, right? Or is like Disney screwed all that up?
Yeah, Bob's public domain. No. Disney didn't have any. Disney had the second one, but no, that's public domain.
Maybe we should do an Italian-style version of Wizard of Oz.
Of Wizard of Oz?
Yeah.
He's in Brahms in the news now. Bombs in the news now, but not for nothing we need to talk about here. But yes, that would be very interesting to do it Italian, and get like a real attractive female Italian girl, like, oh, signorina, scusi, a Wizard of Oz.
And nothing classy like Argento, more like Fulci or Luigi Cosi style, where it's like real gritty.
Yeah, it's like Zombie when they go to the island. And it's all like real, like it's maybe that you can play with the world settings. So Blake and I are gonna just brainstorm.
Scratch what we were going to talk about. We're just gonna.
We're gonna talk.
You're
going to
hear the creative process in action.
Our visioning. You could have it be completely one movie at the beginning. Have it be like some style, and then when you go like maybe like some Italian like La Strada kind of a style, and then they go into the past, and then you're on the zombie island. So you're actually playing within genres of the Italian cinema.
Scarecrow! I'm so scared.
Yeah, exactly. Don't worry, it's all dubbed wrong. Everything, and then even maybe a sequence. It's a different person because remember how they had to switch out what's his face from Barnaby Jones.
Oh yeah.
As Scarecrow. So you have it be Epson. You have it be a different person for a take. We had to use him. So anyway, we're doing tonight a double feature. And it's very exciting. We used to always, when we would do stuff down the alley or something, I would suggest, and Blake said, I don't know, man. I don't know if anybody's going to listen to this episode. We'll have to see who is going to like this double feature right here, because we went way down the alley. We realized the alley is deep, turns, and there's a back alley. And we said, wow, that's where they keep the dumpsters.
I don't remember how we came up with it. So I think you brought it up. You're like, what if we did like FX? And I was like, yeah.
Yeah, we were rattling names off. I was like, I would do, Cloak and Dagger, Daryl, FX. You like FX?
I do FX.
Go back a minute. That's good. I know you do. We do all those, but we just showed our hand at some of the ones on our list that have been on there for years.
And then I think you were like, well, what if we did an FX2 double feature? And I was like, fuck it, let's do it.
Let's do it, because I was like, because I said like I do both of them because the FX2 is just as big as FX1 for me, and then we were like, just do a double feature. Yeah. So we're doing tonight FX from 1986, and then we're doing FX,
aka FX Murder by Illusion.
Yes, and then FX2 1991, aka
FX2 The Deadly Art of Illusion.
Yes, and that's weird because I never saw those titles. I don't think on the theatrical box I'd ever saw, or the posters, did they have, maybe FX2 had the Deadly Art of Illusion on it, but I don't remember having the subtitle of FX.
Yeah. I don't know.
Murder by Illusion.
If we were kids, we ever would have thought of it as being part of the title, or just being like a description on the box. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And this is a movie where, how old was I? I don't remember how old I was when I saw the first movie. So I can't remember how I saw this first, but it was definitely something, I'm pretty sure, like we went to the video store and my dad's like, yeah, you're going to like this. You should check this out. And at the time, it was my introduction to Bryan Dennehy, who grew up in the town over from my mother in Derby, Connecticut. So that was always when I was little, like when we rented First Blood. Aside from the allure of it being Stallone, it was like, yo, Bryan Dennehy's in this too. And we just brought him up a couple months ago, I think.
Oh, he passed away.
Yeah. And he passed non-COVID related, but he passed in New Haven because he lived in Connecticut. And I think it was just, because he was getting up there in years or had some other complications. And then, we rented this thing, and it was like, Dennehy's in it. And this was also my first introduction to Jerry Orbach. So by the time, we got to like, Dirty Dancing or even, Prince of the City is much earlier, but like, Beauty and the Beast, or when I was little, I used to watch, Murder, She Wrote with my mom, and he would show on Murder, She Wrote. I think he was so popular on Murder, She Wrote that he got his own series for a minute, Jerry Orbach.
Murder, He Wrote?
Yeah, Murder, He Wrote. Murder, She Said. I think it's an Agatha Christie Marple story. So anyway, I remember watching this when I was little, loving it, and then knowing it so that when the second movie came out, me and my best friend Martin at the time, we were head over heels waiting for 2 to come out. I can't recall. I forgot. I was supposed to look that up. If I saw this in FX2 in the cinema, I feel like I didn't. But then when I think about it, I feel like I had a ticket stub because you and I used to collect our ticket stubs. I feel like I had an FX2, like looking down. I have a memory of looking down at that FX2 ticket stub. So maybe I did see this in the cinema. But FX2 was big for me too, which they say FX2 didn't do as well as FX1. But man, I loved FX2 when it came out. But I had seen, I feel like FX once or twice, but I feel like I'd only seen FX2 entirely through maybe once the first time I saw it, and then I maybe caught clips of it on TV, the beginning or the end, or the parts with the clown, and then that was it.
Yeah.
How about you?
My journey with FX is slightly more convoluted. I remember seeing the preview for FX2. And I can't remember if I saw it on television for the theatrical release or at the beginning of a rented videotape. You know what I mean?
FX2.
Yeah. For like it's on
and it had a sweet trailer. That's what really grabbed everybody.
Yeah.
How awesome that trailer was with the opening sequence and it's all, but we'll get to that.
And I saw the trailer and it like blew my fucking mind. I mean, it was 1991. So
yeah, this plays into a lot of the themes we always talk about.
Yeah,
that we bring up specifically on this show, and then that's when we were watching this tonight. I was like, this plays into everything we talk about on Sleepovers.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it before, which is like both Dion and I, when we met each other, we both met each other because of our love of cinema, and we wanted to make movies, and we both kind of came to the desire to make movies on a similar trajectory as kids, which is, I would imagine a lot of people our age had a similar trajectory, which is like we grew up in the age of special effects and the behind the scenes things, shows like Movie Magic and all these specials about how to make movies, even predating obviously special features on DVDs, because DVDs didn't exist yet, but this idea of like pulling the curtain back and showing us what was happening. It seemed
also new.
Yeah, it was just it was an age of showing how they did how they made the magic tricks. You know what I mean? There was
all the heavenly glory,
and special effects guys became kind of like the rock stars of cinema. I mean, we grew up, post Exorcist, but we grew up with like American Werewolf in London and The Thing. So like guys like Rick Baker and Rob Bottin and Tom Savini, these guys were like
Dick Smith. These were huge.
Yeah, and so when I saw this preview in 1991, I was like, "Whoa! Like I got to see this movie." I didn't know there was a first one, and it's funny because I don't know if he rented the second one. But at some point, I was talking to my brother, and back then, and I was like, "There's this movie, FX2, and blah blah blah," and he's like, "It's a sequel, right?" And I was like, what do you mean? There's an FX1? And he's like, yeah, but it's not called FX1. It's called FX. And I was like, oh. And then I rented FX. And so I probably saw the second one first. And then through the stupidity of youth,
the magic of the video store,
never put two and two together that there was that the two meant that that was the second movie.
Well, it's just like you don't think that far ahead. It was not like it's ignorance. You just don't. You're like, oh, it didn't click with you. You're like, I guess that must mean what it means.
Yeah, but I probably haven't seen either one of these movies since then. So it's been at the very least 30 years. Probably.
Yeah, it's been a very long time for me. And that was another weird thing. Like, I remember bits of one. I must have only seen one once.
I guess more like 15 years. 25 years, not 30, but still.
Well, I think it was more like 30 for me, or like
1990,
at least around the time this.
Maybe the first one for you would have been 30. Anyway.
And I only remember bits of the first one. Like, I remember that Jerry Orbach having his pacemaker and them using that against him at the end. I loved his step van in it. I mean, when I was really little, the first thing I ever wanted to be was like a truck driver, because I loved Mack trucks. I loved trucks. I loved my Matchbox cars. So when I was really, really little, I was like, I'm going to drive trucks when I grow up. And then that's quickly turned into like, I love movies. And so I loved his step van. I thought that was so cool, the van, because he had it was like his mobile studio in the back. It could do whatever he wanted in the back of that thing. And what else did I remember from the first one? A couple things, like I said, Dennehy, of course. And then with the second movie, man, like the opening, with the sequence, with what we could talk about later, with the alien robot, and then the clown, and then when you and I were watching this, the second one, I suddenly had a flashback, which you hadn't thought about in 29 years or 28 years, is the sequence when the Terminator Hitman guy is in his apartment and he puts on the clown outfit. I hadn't thought about in 30 years that, he fights him with the clown. And then that sequence, where he's in the outfit, the body in the thing. So that was hilarious. And because it's so weird when you make it like a neural pathway that hasn't been used in 30 years. And then that thing lights up and strikes again.
Yeah.
So that was very exciting to suddenly have a memory that I know I haven't had since before I met you. And I was like, wow, So I feel like these are hard because I don't know how these are going to hold up nowadays. And I think people for our age who have an affinity for the movie will like them a lot and think they're great. They're great snapshot of the 80s, great snapshot of the early 90s, which is kind of still the 80s. But I think that the emphasis here is for people who haven't seen it back when they came out and had no history, and they go back and listen to it or see it now, maybe because we're talking about it, or they just see it out of their own volition, is that that was so new back then. So I feel like audiences, for me, one of the earliest memories I remember is it was either Conan. I don't know which Conan movie it was. What year did The Destroyer come out? That's 81 or 82, right? It's before Terminator, right? If I remember correctly. So it's either a special feature for The Destroyer or maybe Red Sonja, but it was some behind the scenes thing. It even looked like PBS, where some guy's in a special effects shop, and he's showing this, he's wearing it's like a body brace, is in this movie, and he's got a big sword, and he's explaining to the cameras, so if you just touch the sword here, and he touches it, and then everything just starts bleeding right there, or if he just touches it here, it starts bleeding right there. And this is me having a memory that's 35 to maybe 38 years old, so I might be wrong if someone finds that special feature, but it fascinated me. I was like, wow, like you're saying, it's illusion. So I feel like audience as well, even people our parents' age, when they saw the first FX movie, when they're explaining, this is a squib, or this is a fat, and they put and then they have the button for him to blow the squibs. That was so new, where I feel like nowadays you're kind of because the magic is gone. That's normalized. That's become part of the genre. So I feel like that had a big hook. and especially in that with the second one too, that new technology of being able to manipulate stuff, and so yeah.
Yeah, I think that I think they both hold up really well. Like I said, I haven't seen these movies since the early 90s, and in some ways I think the first one holds up even better than the second one does.
Yeah.
But
I'd agree.
Watching it this time around, what I found interesting about it in the context of us in this movie is that
you and I.
It's probably been brought up on the show before. But Dion is a lifelong MacGyver fan. And though I watched MacGyver on occasion as a kid, it wasn't really my show. I didn't have as much of a knowledge about MacGyver as Dion does now. But I've been for the last year, I've been watching MacGyver.
And what's interesting is if you listen to the podcast, there's an evolution there where we'll talk about. I'll bring MacGyver up occasionally, and Blake's like, "Yeah, it wasn't my bag." But then in the past year, you're binge watching.
I've been watching.
I was doing Cagney and Lacey 5 years ago. You're watching MacGyver.
I've been watching MacGyver 3 episodes a week because it's on Heroes
so I'm getting
and
late
Icons.
night texts. Yeah, Heroes and Icons. So I'm getting late night texts like, "Yo, that Columbia necktie episode with the Challenger Club was intense." And I'm like, "I know, man."
So,
and you're bringing me back to memories I haven't had in 30 years.
The reason why I bring up MacGyver is that I think this movie plays for us today, more for you specifically back then, on 2 levels, which is like the wonder of special effects and the affinity we have for the making of movies and special effects. So that aspect of this movie kind of captures our imaginations, especially back then when we were kids. But also this idea that he's MacGyvering the hell out of shit in these 2 movies.
I know, yeah. Especially I wrote.
I was going to say, I wonder if that was part of the appeal of this movie, because if this movie came out in 86, that means like MacGyver came out in 85, right? So
yeah, so you're in the season 2 or season 3 by the time I saw it.
So there might have been
the first one in the theater.
I'm wondering if like the act of if the movie almost got greenlit in a way because of like the MacGyvery aspects of it. Especially the second one has way more MacGyvering going on than the first one.
Yeah, I have that as a note in my notes. Like, wow, he's MacGyvering the hell out of shit left and right here. So that could have been also the appeal for me as a young Dion, because I used to carry a pocket knife when I was able to be allowed to carry a pocket knife that I would lose incessantly, and I wanted to be MacGyver. When I grew up, I wanted to be Mr. Rogers and MacGyver all in one, and I failed pitifully. Yeah, he's doing a lot of that behind the scenes stuff and this and that. So it's definitely something that intrigues. It's very intriguing, and they're just unique movies. It's weird because I feel like people could probably go through their life and never even heard of these. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like this was the first one was so popular and so good. That they greenlit a second one, and it came out, and that came and went, and then they even got us a series that Blake and I think both didn't know about until we went into recording this, and that just slipped by the annals of history.
Yeah, there's also a side thing as to the appeal of these movies to me, for me as a kid, is that for some reason to this day, my dad is a huge Bryan Brown fan. If you ever bring up Bryan Brown around my dad, he'd be like, "Bryan Brown."
Of course.
I don't know why he didn't make more movies, and I don't know why Bryan Brown. I mean, at least more American movies. He might have a pretty lengthy Australian filmography. I don't know, but other than these movies and Cocktail, like I can't think of any like other, really juicy parts that he had in American movies. I know he's popped up in things, but so the Bryan Brown aspect, and because of my dad's love for Bryan Brown, I've always had like a weird affinity for Bryan Brown, inexplicably, other than the fact that my dad likes him. But so Bryan Brown was also a big selling point for me, and I
wonder why if that's why they cast him. If they, you need a lead, You want to bring somebody either in who is really known to audiences, or if you want something that's a little different, a dynamic. So him being an Aussie, they're like, what, that might, because when I was little, this is right. I think Crocodile Dundee is either 86 or 87. So, I think I might have saw this before I saw Crocodile Dundee. So it's like, that whole Australian allure. I was like, just, I was like, it sucks you right in. And he's such an appealing guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's good looking. He's, let's make an admission on this show that I think everybody has to agree with. Back in the day, we all wore tidy whities. So, I'm starting to get back into the tidy whities now as I get older. I'm like, you know what? I went from tidy whities to when I got to high school, I wore boxers. Then I went into boxer briefs, and I like the boxer briefs now because it gives you both worlds. But you know what? I got a pack of tidy whities in the past couple of years, but that's hard to keep them clean.
You can go tidy other color if you want.
Yeah. So he's rocking an 80s pair of tidy whities in this, and then when 6 years later in the next movie, he's still looking good. His body's still kind of jacked.
He looks exactly the same.
Yeah, it's pretty unbelievable. But yeah, he did some Australian shows and stuff like that, and then he came over here, and then he did Cocktail, and Cocktail was huge. Yeah. And there's even a subtle joke in FX2 about Cocktail, which I think people back then would get, but now it may pass by if you're not thinking of it. He was in that Journey to the Center of the Earth TV series in 1999. Bryan Brown, and I feel like he did some other movie that was. Oh, he was in Gorillas in the Mist. About Diane Fossey with Sigourney Weaver. That was also Rick Baker, special effects with the apes and the gorillas and stuff like that. So I felt like he was around. I mean, the one-off of having Cocktail with Tom Cruise when Tom Cruise he had all hits in that era. Right around
he was
Top
coming
Gun
off
and
of
forward.
Top Gun and Days of Thunder,
The Outsiders, Days of Thunder,
a whirlwind.
Yeah,
a whirlwind of Tom Cruisery,
of pure cruisery.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things. I like to go through the. Like the credit list and talk about people, but so I'll do that now, and then we can get it more into the movie. Directed by Robert Mandel, who I guess was known as basically a New York theater director and a bit of an arty filmmaker. He directed a movie that came out the same year as FX in 1986 called Touch and Go, which me and the brothers Hastings have a weird affinity for.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think I must have bought it on video, or somehow we watched Touch and Go. And the funny story behind Touch and Go real quick is that Steve and I were going to go to a horror convention with an old friend of Dion's and mine from college, Aaron. And Aaron canceled at the last minute. And
that's Aaron for you.
And since Steve didn't know Aaron very well, he was very disappointed. Whereas I was like,
Well, Aaron's one of those guys where he either cancels on you last minute or just doesn't show up because he forgets.
He forgets.
So you're standing you're in a parking lot. You're like,
And also back then it still does, but back then especially was suffering from like like an illness that would flare up. That
was misdiagnosed quite a bit.
Yeah,
so
for
he was
years
going through a lot of treatments that he probably didn't. Lyme disease, this or that. So he was having treatment that he didn't even need.
And I think he just wasn't feeling well, so he canceled. And so we got Steve was mad, and but we said, okay, well, we'll sit at home. This is what I live with the brothers Hastings in a house. So Steve and I sat down and we started watching Touch and Go, and I don't remember why. Like I said, maybe I had a video of it. It stars Michael Keaton.
Oh yeah,
and it opens with like Michael Keaton, and he's a hockey player in it. And
this is weird because I looked this up the other night. I'd never heard of this movie, and I watched the trailer, and it's like, I know Clean and Sober, I know Mr. Mom, his early stuff, and I'm like, this completely. So I watched the trailer, and I was like, what the fuck is this movie? Touch and Go, and it's a long trailer. You're like, huh? And he starts off as a hockey player, and he gets involved with a kid.
Yeah. But so we start watching this movie, and Steve's brother Dave, who was also one of our roommates, he used to work at like Borders Books and Music until like closing. So he was working. And we started watching it. It opens with Michael Keaton running, like jogging through like around New York with this music, like this synth music. And the minute we started watching it, I hit like stop and I said, we got to wait for Dave. Like, we can't watch this without Dave because the music was just so fucking perfect. And it was Michael Keaton. And so we stopped, and Steve was a musician, and I play guitar, and Steve plays keyboards. And we sat and we jammed to the Touch and Go theme for like 2 hours.
Well, you learned how to play it, or how did you?
Steve's like a really talented keyboard player.
Yeah, he's a genius. Yeah.
So Steve started just like, he figured it out, and he started playing the Touch and Go theme. And then I would start playing guitar, but we just jammed on it forever. And then Dave came home, and we're like, Dave, get changed.
You guys are all tired.
Wash up. Like, we got to watch Touch and Go. And then we watched it. Turned out the movie wasn't that great. But I'll always have a fond memory of it because of that theme and jamming out to it with Steve Hastings. But so he did Touch and Go. He in 1992, he did School Ties, which was a
This
movie.
is the director,
Robert Mandel.
Robert Mandel. Yep.
He did The Substitute with Tom Berenger, which I feel like came
movie.
up recently on the show. Somebody else had something to do with The Substitute, I feel like. And he directed he did a lot of TV, but he also directed the pilot to The X-Files.
Yeah, which is a big thing for us when we were little. I remember when that, like, seeing the preview, next week, a new kind of show. So the pilot was very, very big in our childhood. He also directed, around 1991, a movie called The Haunted. And that is actually the original case about the Warrens, the two guys who did Amityville, the psychic team, that The Conjuring's based off of, this movie, The Haunted. They took The Conjuring basic story and they reappropriated it and put it like out in the woods in a house in, like, Rhode Island or something. I forget. The Haunted takes place more in suburbia, and it's one of these movies you can find on YouTube. It's a TV horror movie. It's very, very good, and it has in it, what's his face, Jeffrey DeMunn, if I'm pronouncing that right, who has been in a ton of stuff, but he was on Walking Dead. I forget what his name was, but he had the Winnebago. And then he used to wear the fishing cap. Yeah, that's Jeffrey DeMunn. He's in Green Mile. He's one of the guards.
Yeah,
he's in a lot of stuff. Yeah. Yeah, but he's the husband and the wife. They move into the house, and the haunting starts happening, and it might even be that where he's accosted and raped by a ghost, which might be part of the original story. Which I might be getting my ghost stories, but that might be that movie. But that was also directed by Robert Mandel. Yeah. So, but they grabbed him because they didn't want to get an action director, right? So the producers
so basically these two guys wrote this script, and there's not really a lot of information about one of them. Robert T. Megginson and Gregory Fleeman. Gregory Fleeman doesn't seem to have done much in the business. Robert T. Megginson seemed to have written and directed a couple of low-budget horror movies and stuff like that. But I guess they came up with the script for this, which resembles in a lot of ways 3 Days in the Condor.
Fabulous movie from
the Robert Redford movie. And I don't know if that was an inspiration. I don't know if that was an inspiration for them, but they wrote the script.
And that movie basically is just where it's like a guy who, I think he was beginning in the New York office in the CIA, but he leaves for coffee, and then the whole satellite office, the secret office CIA, gets killed, and he comes back, and then he luckily wasn't there, but then suddenly the killers, I think they put him on it, and he's on the run. Yeah. So that's the similarity there, where the whole movie, Robert Redford's trying to say, like, it wasn't me, it was somebody else, I saw him, and I'm going to figure out who it was, and I'm going to figure out what it's about. So
apparently they wrote this with the intention of writing like a spec TV, low budget TV movie, and somehow it got into the hands of producer Jack Weiner or Wiener.
Yep.
Vina, who had done a bunch of like a couple of war movies like The Eagle Has Landed and Escape to Athena, and this movie called Green Ice. And he read the script and he liked it. And he thought that this seemed to be more of a theatrical movie than a television movie. So he pushed for it to get a theatrical release, and he wanted to make it. And his producing partner is Dottie Fayed. Unfortunately, he's best known for being the romantic interest of Princess Di and dying with her in that car crash where she
in Paris.
died. But he was a producer, and he was an executive.
She got married with him after, or got involved with him after she divorced.
Yeah.
And that was the one where you'd see her be on the yachts and people taking pictures of her and stuff like that, and they wouldn't leave her alone. And then that was that night that they were together, which was, we were in college at the time, I think, or something like that, maybe.
Yeah.
When Princess died, but he was in the car with her when they were speeding away from the paparazzi. Yeah.
And he was the executive producer of like Chariots of Fire, and he later was executive producer of Hook, the Spielberg movie.
Yeah.
And so they take this script and they decide to make it as a feature-length movie. As Dion was kind of indicating, they chose Robert Mandel because they didn't want to get an action director for it. They wanted to get someone who they thought would play up the drama and the characters, and hopefully in that way give it kind of a different feel than some of the other movies of the time, which were like the Jerry Bruckheimer, Michael Bay action movies, and of course this was the beginning to be the heyday of the Schwarzenegger, Stallone, coming right up on the Van Damme Seagal movies.
I mean, there's a picture of there's Rambo First Bloods over the boards, over the post boards when they crashed the car.
Yeah.
So this is right in the era of those big action movies, Commando and Rambo and stuff like that. So you can see why they don't want to have it be an action and have it get schlocky, I guess. They want to keep it kind of more serious.
Although guys like George Picasmatos or Ted Kotcheff, who did the original, the first Blood, the first Rambo movie, all these guys who did these movies were really great directors and probably would have done a really great job with this movie. But you can see you can see the thought process behind getting someone who, because he was originally like, I don't know why you're asking me to do this. Like, I'm not an action thriller director. Like, I don't. And they're like, no, that's why we want you. We want you to be able to. And I don't know if that really comes through so much when you watch the movie.
That he's not an action director?
Well, that
they wanted him to
like that they really wanted to play up the human side of it. Because it doesn't come across to me as being any more so than something like, especially the first Rambo movie or whatever. Quickly going through some of the other credits, the guy who shot this movie, and I'll try to pronounce his name, but Miroslav Andricek. There's a bunch of accents over his last name, but this guy is like a cinematography legend. I mean, he started in the 60s. He did the movie If in 68, Oh Lucky Man 73. I'm just going to run through a couple of the titles that I thought
we like Oh Lucky Man
were worth mentioning for Dion's sake and my sake, and people. Hair in 1980. Silkwood, which was a big movie in 83 with Meryl Streep. Amadeus, of course, was huge. But then things like Funny Farm. He also connected with Penny Marshall, did Awakenings, League of Their Own, Riding Cars with Boys. Wow. So he did a lot of really great movies. And also The Editor is kind of a big deal because that's also a story that's worth getting into later on involving The Editor, which is Terry Rawlings, who... he edited The Sentinel, which was a horror movie from the 70s, which I think stars Barbara Hershey. A very strange movie. But then he also was Ridley Scott's editor for he did Alien, Blade Runner, Legend. He later did Alien 3. He edited No Escape with Ray Liotta. He edited GoldenEye, which is interesting. And like I said, there's a story involving him that once we start getting more into the story, we can talk about. But then, of course, the guy who did the music is one of my favorite composers of all time, who, unfortunately, I didn't talk with him about FX when he was featured on an episode of Scored to Death, the podcast. But Bill Conti, who most famously did the music for most of the Rocky movies, including the original one, he did the score for this movie. And
did a lot of stuff when you look up his filmography. Like, I was surprised Cagney Lacey. I'm like, what? So it's like if you go through, he's got a lot of gems. Where you're like, wow.
He did a lot of great TV themes. Like he did the TV theme to Cagney Lacey, the TV theme to Dynasty. And then he won the Academy Award for All the Right Stuff. He did all the Karate Kid the original Karate Kid movies, not the remake with Will Smith's son. But Bill Conti's Victory with Stallone. He did the remake of Thomas Crown Affair.
Did he do Over the Top?
I don't think he did Over the Top, but he did Fist.
I don't know why that's coming to mind. Yeah, maybe that's what I'm thinking
and I think he did Paradise Alley for Stallone. But he did all kinds of movies. We focused on some of my Masters of the Universe, which is a movie that we have an episode on. Karate Kid we did on the show as well. The first Rocky we did on the show on Saturday Night Movie Sleepovers. But so my interview with him focuses on a smattering of things that I like. But then he also did a score for a movie called Nomads, which was John McTiernan's first released feature, and Pierce Brosnan's first feature. He did the music.
And you brought that up on. We talked about that because maybe in a prior episode we were talking about Conti, and then you brought that up about how you have an affinity for that movie because it's just so out there, and because it's those maybe it was a John McTiernan movie we did. Maybe Die Hard on that podcast or whatever, or maybe Predator. We talk about that.
Yeah.
You brought that up a little bit,
but
that you have an affinity for that.
He did that.
It's a weird movie.
Yeah, it's really cool though.
Yeah,
and he did. Bill Conti did that score with Ted Nugent. So I also have an episode of Scored to Death, the podcast, where I interviewed Ted Nugent specifically about working with Bill Conti on Nomads.
And that must be the first time he ever. That's like he's like, wow, you want to talk about that?
It's funny, somebody else later, I was advertising or I was telling somebody that I did it on Facebook who runs a really popular horror movie website and does a lot of things. He used to edit Fangoria magazine for a while back in the day, and he was like, oh, wow, you got Nugent to talk about it? He's like, I've been trying to get Nugent to talk about it forever. So apparently, I don't know, apparently he's had other offers, according to this guy, or maybe this guy was just talking to the wrong people. But Nugent...
It's your connections, Blake. It's your esteem.
Nugent seemed happy to talk about it with me. And of course, cast-wise, we talked about Bryan Brown, Brian Dennehy, which interesting. Could you ever think of a time when Brian Dennehy was young? He always seems like he was at least 50 years old.
Yeah, I mean, he's younger-ish in First Blood, but he's still older in First Blood because he's the seasoned sheriff. But he's always this big. He's like, in these two movies, he's cast as like a ladies' man, so he's always like towering over the ladies, and like, what do you? I'm going to give you some sugar and take you to Jamaica, and they're like, oh, Brian. So he's got some sexy charisma. But this cast list is all regulars that we've had on the show. A lot of them. Cliff DeYoung, who plays the agent that drafts.
Very
Bryan
familiar
Brown.
face for our generation. He's in a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he's in Flight of the Navigator, and then he was in something else we did as well. Do you know what that is offhand?
No.
I felt like there's another movie we just did very recently that The Craft. He's in The Craft, which we did as well. And then he's in Suicide Kings, which we didn't do. Then you got Jerry Orbach, who we brought up. Jerry Orbach, we've done, Dirty Dancing on here. We've done Beauty and the Beast on here. I don't know if we've done another Jerry Orbach movie. Mason Adams, who we brought up, The Night They Saved Christmas, who is the New Bryn. Yeah, the Easter, Cadbury eggs. And he's the guy that we were joking was the evil oil man. Remember? He was like, you remember what happened to us in South America with Sorcerer? You got to, because we did Night They Saved Christmas, which was a really in-the-weeds movie with Art Carney as Santa.
It's an unofficial sequel to Sorcerer.
It's an unofficial sequel to Sorcerer, because it's about an oil company up north drilling for oil, and they're kind of impeding on the North Pole, and the North Pole, there's a chance they may destroy the North Pole, and it has a big cast, actually, like Jacqueline Smith. There's a couple names in that. And also we have Roscoe Orman, who was on Sesame Street. We just did Muppets last week.
Yes.
And
who played Gordon.
It's funny, Yeah, he played Gordon. So it's funny that we didn't know that was Gordon's day job. Was he was like a homicide detective? You know?
Exactly.
So it's very stressful.
That's exactly what I was thinking about. He lives on Sesame
It's like
Street.
very stressful job when he leaves. Yeah, he leaves Sesame Street. And he has to come back, and it's like there's a joke where we haven't covered it yet. But Bronson's the original Death Wish. When they're checking out, when the evil gang, Jeff Goldblum and them, they target Bronson, Paul Kersey's wife and child. They pick him up at a grocery store, and the punks are like, "Look at her and them over there. Let's follow them home." And the one that's ringing them out is Maria from Sesame Street. So I was like, Jesus, Maria, when she leaves Sesame Street, she goes to a dodgy neighborhood to get her to work at the grocery store. She should just stay on Sesame Street. Mr. Hooper should hire her there and have her be. So that's what I was thinking the whole time. And it's funny because he shows up, Roscoe shows up in a couple. He's not the original Gordon. We talked about the switch when we did the Muppet Movie episode. We talked extensively.
Yeah, it was like Holly Robinson, Pete's dad, right? Was the original.
Yeah. And he had some problems with just I forgot what happened with him, but it was social problems or something with his son, and he was very politically active at the time. So they ended up switching, and then but he's in like striking distance. I feel like he was in Turner and Hooch. I've only seen that movie once, but I felt like he was a cop in Turner and Hooch, which I don't know if I'm wrong. But so for me as a child, it was always weird. To see these people you knew from these shows show up in something else. I remember when Blue's Clues was big at the time, the American version, the guy who was the American Blue's Clues guy, and Blue's Clues wasn't our era, we were older at this time, but it would be on. He did an episode of Homicide: Life on the Street, I think it was called, the show he was on, and he played a serial killer on the show. So there was kind of backlash, like parents wrote in that they were upset to see him as a serial killer on a cop show, and it's like, they were worried about so it got into that. So when I would see Gordon, I would be like, what's Gordon doing here, or in a different context, or later on, the other lady was on 227 who used to be on, I'm pretty sure she was on 227, who used to be on Sesame Street as well. So it'd be funny seeing them out of context.
Yeah.
And then what other notable? I feel like there was the female in this, Tom Noonan, who we've done. This is sandwiched in between Manhunter and Monster Squad. We haven't done Manhunter on the show yet. We've done Monster Squad. So you think about in one of his first movies or his first appearance is Wolfen, Tom Noonan. Yeah. So, he had some speaking roles. He's a bad guy in Manhunter, which might not have been out yet. But so he has a pretty minor role in this movie. I mean, it's a featured part, but he doesn't have like any big lines. He says a couple words.
Well, his part in Wolfen is probably on par with this. I mean, it's like a featured part. I mean, it's not like a huge.
But doesn't he have a little more line? He's like a geneticist, right? He's analyzing the hairs or something. And he rides his bike.
He's not in a whole lot of it, but his part has lines.
So yes, Tom Noonan's in this, who we had on for Monster Squad, and I feel like we did another movie with Tom Noonan, and then if you're a regular listener to the show, we have a Tom Noonan story, which probably shows up in either Monster Squad or I feel like yeah, I feel like we there was a reason we teased it, and then finally we told our very funny, disturbing Tom Noonan story, and I feel like there's a couple other people that we had on this show.
Well, there's someone who I don't know. There's someone I don't know who, if you would have picked up on, but one of the other henchmen, one of the guys like Tom Noonan, played. Yeah, his name is Paul Diamato. Is the actor's name?
Yes,
he's in Slapshot.
Oh, okay.
He's one of the hockey players that the Chiefs play at the end of the movie, that
bloody fight.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. And then what's her name? Diane Verona. Am I saying her name right? She's also in Heat.
Probably Venora, maybe.
Verona. Her, and then Martha Gilham, who I'm probably saying her name wrong as well, who's in Father of the Bride, Legend of Billie Jean. I was surprised he didn't end up with her at the end, because I was kind of disappointed when 2 starts up that he's not with her, because that's his assistant in it. Yeah. But we can get to that later. So a lot of regulars on the show, but a lot of familiar faces in the 80s.
But Dion mentioned that Diane Venora is in Heat, but she plays Al Pacino's wife, so it's like a big part. Plays Natalie Portman.
I never cheated on you, bitch. Yeah. Love that movie.
We're going to do Heat at some point.
Yeah. That'll be a big one, because then we'd have to go to the L.A. Takedown, the TV movie it's based on, and then there's like whole books written on Heat and stuff. But there's a lot of familiar faces in this, which was really exciting, because since I hadn't seen this movie in so long, when all of a sudden when you see tall-ass Tom Noonan get out of a car, you're like, hey, look, that's Tom Noonan.
Yeah.
Or all the other people in this. The other guy here, the Brian Dennehy's partner, Joe Grafasi. He's a familiar face that people have seen in tons of stuff. He's a very known actor. He's almost like what's his name from the father from Clueless. Who's in he's the in Commando. He's the head of the he's the head. He's from that island. He's the it's like you see he's in Joe vs. the Volcano, Wise Guys. It's like you see these people cherry all through the 80s, and you don't think anything of them, who they are. You just, oh, look, it's him. So it's almost like a familiar face is comforting, but you don't ever think behind.
A lot of familiar faces. But there is somebody that we forgot to mention behind the scenes who's extremely important to this movie, which is the guy who they hired to do the special effects, which is the whole kind of like point of the movie. They hired a special effects artist named John Sears, whose career started in the 60s, where he did special effects for the first 8 James Bond movies.
Yeah.
He also did Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and he did Star Wars.
Well, he won. He partially, shares the Academy Award for Star Wars, but he also did Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, Chitty Chitty Bang, yeah.
And Star Wars, like Dion said, he did a movie called The Awakening.
Which we did on this. We did on this podcast, Star Wars.
We did do Star Wars. But he did The Awakening, which is a cover and a soundtrack that many people will recognize. I believe it's a mummy movie. And he did Outland with Sean Connery.
Yeah. That's a crazy movie.
But finding the right special effects guy was very important for a movie like this, because it's about a special effects artist, obviously.
Yeah, and I wonder if we ever talk to Tom Savini again, because we've had Tom Savini over for sleepovers and stuff. I wonder what his, I wonder at the time if he was jealous, like, because he could have been cast in this, and he was acting at the time.
Yeah.
He's in Knight Riders, he's in Maniac, he's in a good amount of stuff. And I feel like he could have carried a movie like this. So I wonder if there was ever any kind of thought like, well, why don't we get like a Rick Baker? Why don't we get and maybe Dick Smith couldn't do it, but why don't we get somebody who, like a Tom Savini, because he's a good-looking guy. He's got his shirt off the entire time in Knight Riders.
Also,
he's Sex Machine in From Dusk Till Dawn, for people who don't know him.
But also, like, the character of Raleigh Tyler, who Brian Brown plays, when you see his workshop, he's kind of indicated that he comes from the Savini world of, like, low-budget horror movies and splatter movies and monster movies and stuff like that. So it does seem like he is... Even though the movie he's working on at the beginning of this movie, at the beginning of the movie, seems to be like a different kind of picture. He's definitely coming from more of a Savini style and world of special effects. And
even Savini, he did Killing Zoe, the special, and that's not a horror movie. That's just a shoot 'em up movie.
But that's after Savini
did this. Yeah, but that's an example of, even Savini would do stuff once in a while that wasn't horror-centric.
Yeah.
So that's not a big leap for this guy, for Rory to be taken. I'm going to say Rory Gallagher at the beginning of this.
But fantastic idea for a movie. Like a brilliant plot. A concept anyway. This idea of for anybody that hasn't seen the movie, in a nutshell, he's a special effects artist, and the police hire him to stage the assassination, a fake assassination of a mob guy who's gonna snitch. So they want to make everybody think that Jerry Orbach dies, so that then they can put him into witness protection program, because he's gonna testify or snitch on the members of the mob. So they hire special effects artist Raleigh Tyler to kind of make this illusion come to life in the real world, and then through a very Hitchcockian style of plot devices, he becomes that everyman in a North by Northwest twist of fate, who's now on the run. But it's interesting because it's like the concept. Now we're going to start to spoil the crap out of it. So if you haven't seen it and you want to watch the movie, I suggest you press pause now and come back later. But like it's a little convoluted because it's not like they want to kill Jerry Orbach and I guess maybe they want to pin it on Bryan Brown, but it doesn't seem they want to pin it on Bryan Brown. It just
they just want him to be the assassin, pulling the trigger, because he's the one that's staging the special effects.
But so it's not like they're like, we're going to kill Jerry Orbach and then we're going to arrest Bryan Brown for this. They want to kill Jerry. They want, in the concept
Publicly,
of the movie, until the twist happens, we understand that he may have actually killed Jerry Orbach by accident, but they're going to just kill him because he's a loose end and probably ditch the body somewhere. And but then he ends up escaping, and then he's basically on the lam, and it's him surviving the game.
And, using his using his special effects to MacGyvering to get through and get past stuff, and his bag of tricks. And this is something that hinges on, I think, going back to an hour ago, the beginning of the of us with that was also new. I think even the concept of the witness protection program was new at the time, because when he mentions it, he's like, oh, what's that? What's that stand for? So no one really knows what WPP is. And then they're like, oh, I work for the WPP. And they're like, well, what's that? Witness protection. We hide people. Oh, then later on in the movie, when Brian Dennehy's looking through the records with his female friend who comes back for the second movie, he's like, well, what's that right there? And then he's witness protection. So it's like, I feel like that might have been new at the time, because, it wasn't until like, what's the name of that? The Valachi papers was the first big case that you had like a mobster defect come out because it was so secretive. And then he's the one who, in very legendary style, and they did like a Dino De Laurentiis movie with Bronson playing him, where he turned state's evidence and spilled all the secrets about what the Cosa Nostra is, how you become a made man, that thing where they put a card in your palm and they burn the card of Mary and that, and they touch your blood, all the whole process of everything. So I guess that was beginning to happen. And then the other thing, which I think is 1985, is there was a very big gruesome killing in New York City of Paul Castellano, by, we learn later, John Gotti and Sammy the Bull Gravano, which was outside of New York City's steakhouse called Sparks, where he was having dinner inside. Castellano was the older boss. John Gotti, who was below him, he was the older man. And John Gotti and these other guys wanted to kill the boss, so they waited till he came out of the steakhouse and they publicly shot him at night, in front of his Lincoln Town car. And they did it in such a fashion, so it was so egregious. There's pictures all over the New York Post or whatever magazines of the guy dead in between the his open door and and his two other guys that were shot in front of him to make an example. So this was really happening at the time, where you have these little turf wars, and that was after killing Castellano. That's how Gotti then became the head of the what's the name of his crime family? I forget the name of who he was. There was the Genovese, and then he was the I forget. And then Sammy the Bull was under him. So this was something that was actually really happening at the time. It's almost like ripped from the headlines. So that in a year later, when you have this movie and you have Jerry Orbach, who's playing a bad guy who's going to turn state's evidence, they're so worried about him not surviving until he testifies and then is taken away. They figure, well, if we kill him publicly, then they won't have this worry anymore that he's going to be killed before he testifies. And then the switch is that it turns into the 3 Days of the Condor, because you don't know if Bryan Brown really kills him, and then they try to pin it on Bryan Brown. They try to kill Bryan Brown, and then they try to pin it on him. So it becomes this cat and mouse game. Yeah,
I mean, it's, like I said, a great idea, especially like
Gambino. Gambino is his crime family. Useless information, sorry.
As I was kind of indicating at the top of the show, which is that we're coming off of really the glory days of practical effects. By 1986, we'd had The Thing, we'd had, in terms of creature effects, we'd had Werewolf in London with that transformation. We even had Nightmare on Elm Street came out shortly before this. So this idea of that there are people that do make this movie magic, and like, hey, what if, the police need something to be faked, and who would they go to? They would try to go to someone who did this for a living, and
that's why it seems like the idea was so new and so because we were saying, we were just seeing like Rick Baker do the special effects for the werewolf transformation, or you were just starting to see this on television. So for the police the feds, the witness protection people to go to him, and then he's like, I can't do it. Why would you come to me? And he's like, he's very hesitant at first, and then he slowly says yes, and it becomes like this great 80s montage. Yeah. Oh yeah, because they say they're going to get the rival guy, and he's like, wait, what? And that's how because that other guy, Cliff DeYoung, turns on him really quick. He's like, "You son of, I'll never see one of your movies again." He's like, "Get the I counted on you," because it all comes off that they're all very big fans. So like when Cliff DeYoung goes in there to draft him, and they first go into his apartment, which is also it's a loft building, and it's also his studio. He's picking out all like so I married an axe murderer, freaking he's alive, Day of the Dead. He's naming all these movies that are fake. I mean, not the ones I'm naming.
Although they do remember,
they
do mention I Dismember Mama, which is a real movie.
Yeah, and then later on, Dennehy's partner, when they go in there, he says it. He's like, "Oh, look, I dismembered Mama." So it's like, this is how big he is. He's a rock star. Yeah. And it's funny that you have an opening sequence, which also happens in the second one, where you have like this scene where, mass carnage, and it's one of these things where they have like it's, how they shoot it. They do the entire scene, and then they're like, cut, so you have all these special effects and close-ups and this or that, and there's no kind of camera placements or setups, and they're just doing one long shot, and then it plays out in both movies like it's a real scene until you realize a director comes on and calls cut. So at the beginning of it, it's like it is a mob hit where the guy comes in with a machine gun, you never see his face, he's in a trench coat, and he just shoots the entire restaurant, and I think you indicate that it's his girlfriend there, who's a blonde, who is, what's her face? Diane
Venora.
Yeah, and then when they call cut, she gets killed. They call cut. Bryan Brown comes out, and then you realize, he is like a rock star because he's dating the lead in the movie, and it seems like he's almost just as important as the principal actors in the movie. So it does get to that era where they were rock stars. Tom Savini and those guys were like the cock in the walk.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting when they come out of that. So they have that opening scene that Dion's talking about, and then they walk out like the day's shoot is done. And where they walk out to the sidewalk, is on 53rd Street between 10th and 11th Avenue, which is a block away from where I used to live.
Yeah.
And right next door to where I used to work, which is Al Roker Entertainment's offices used to be right next to that. So when they walked out, I was like, hey, it's my old neighborhood. Interesting bit of trivia about the studio that they walk out of there used to be the studio where they shot the television show Dark Shadows.
Which you and I have been talking a lot about lately because I've been watching it late at night on Decades. It's my story now.
So they walk out of the studio where they used to shoot that, and when I worked at Al Roker's, that's where the Wendy Williams show was shot, was in that studio. But I believe that studio has...
So they shot Wendy Williams on the same soundstage as they shot Dark Shadows.
Yeah. And
how long we've come. Wow, look at that.
I think now they might be tearing that down or have already torn it down. I don't know. I haven't lived in that neighborhood for a few years. I still walk. It's not that far away from where I live now, but I still walk up there occasionally. But I don't know.
They do a lot of that in this, where they shoot. A lot of it was shot in Toronto, and I think more of the second movie shot in Toronto.
Yeah.
But they do have a lot of scenes that are in the city, and they look good. You know, they really use the locale as well. That, like you're saying, they walk out of a 53rd and 11th. You're like, oh, you know, I recognize the neighborhood. Or when they're in Central Park, or, you know, they or even doesn't his apartment overlook a bridge? It might be the Brooklyn Bridge or something. He's got like a nice.
Yeah, I don't know where his apartment is. I mean, there's definitely shots of bridges. I don't remember if it's overlooking, but I was wondering, like, where he lives looks like it must be down, kind of like just before you get to the Village in Soho, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, there is an interest, you know, and I've said this on the show before, there's like, when you live here, and I'm sure it's that way in LA too, there's like this extra added layer of familiarity.
Yeah.
That, like,
familiarity.
When I'm watching the movies, it's like, oh, like, I know where that is. All right. Like, that's right near where my apartment used to be. Or I remember I saw, there was a movie, I think it was called Fighting. And it was started, I believe, Channing Tatum. And it was like, he fights an underground thing. And I saw that at the AMC on 42nd Street. And where he lives in that movie is in this old rundown hotel called the Blue Elk or Elk Hotel or something, which is less than a block away from that movie theater on 42nd Street. So when
saw it.
So when I watched that movie, it was like,
it's a block away.
I just walked by that location to get to this movie theater to watch that.
There is certainly something, you know, where I work in Midtown, it shows up a lot because it's near Rockefeller Center. So there's always an allure when you see, you know, I just watched a movie which I sent you, Report to the Commissioner, and which is shot all in Midtown, right where I work in 73. And the building I work in was built right around that time. So it's amazing to see in some of these movies that are older is how much the neighborhood has changed, but then at the same time, the stark difference of how much neighborhood has not changed.
Yeah.
So it's pretty crazy to see. Like, I love the shots we talked about in The Changeling when you have George C. Scott, you know, walking across the street, you know, on the west side there at Lincoln Center. And then, you and I are looking beyond him to look at the different, you know, what's it, P.J. Clark's?
Yeah, that's where P.J. Clark's is now.
Yeah, you're looking. So the scenes where you see Dennehy, like, you know, cross the street when he's talking, you know, or they're coming out downtown by the courthouse, you know, and, you know, it's very exciting because I'm always looking to see what's going on because that's where, you know, I don't live in New York City, you do, but, you know, I'm going in the city every day because of, you know, where I work. So I guess it's our city, so to speak. So it's like, it's so funny to look at the background of the different taxi cabs back then. You know, they have like the Caprices or these other kind of cars, you know, or even in the second movie when Dennehy's driving a checkered cab, a modified, which is like a Batmobile kind of a thing, or like the Shadows car. Dennehy doesn't even show up for like 45 minutes of the movie because what ends up happening is, as we go along with the plot, he's very hesitant at first to take the job. He's like, I don't know. And then he even goes and visits Cliff DeYoung's boss, who's Mason Adams, who we brought up, the guy who did tons of voiceover work. People our age will know him in a second by his voice because of commercials in the 80s for Nuprin and for Cadbury Egg and for, I don't know, all tons of stuff. And he was featured on here. We did him in The Night They Saved Christmas. He's the boss of the agency or that branch in New York, that office, and they're trying to get him to say yes. He says no, and then, like you said, they go to his ego and they say, okay, we'll hire Tom Savini, and he's like, what? You know, they don't really say Tom Savini.
Yeah.
And then when they say that, they're like, okay, and then that was almost like a gamble because what happens if he didn't bite? Then they would have been gone. I mean, they were really like they almost knew it might happen, you know, because Cliff DeYoung is so like, you know, what, fuck you, you're not going to, and then Mason Adams like, calm down. So, he agrees, and then he's like, you know, this is what I need. And then, you know, the next step is he has to be introduced to Jerry Orbach. So we have this scene where they bring Jerry Orbach secretly to him, and we have like the A-Team montage of like very cool, not in any way kind of like it's schlocky, but it's like him getting ready. So he's doing he's taking pictures of the face, every angle, and he's doing this. And then you see this, you know, they do a mold of his face, you know, and everyone's watching. And at the time, you hear for this movie and the second movie, and I don't know if it's urban legend, but supposedly like Hollywood got mad because so much of the craft was exposed.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know if that's true, because at this point I figure like people, it was already out there. It wasn't like it was like it's not like he's Houdini and he's kind of like exposing magic tricks like that old show used to do that you and I used to watch with the guy in the hood that would like just, tell you everything. But it's fun. You see how they do stuff. So, he takes a mold of Jerry Orbach, the mobster, to Franco's face, and then, and I
was going to say, what works great about that scene is that it lends an air of authenticity to it all. Even if you weren't familiar with the process, the fact that he's like he's really doing it, like he is really making a mold of Jerry Orbach, it adds like credibility to the character of that Bryan Brown's playing, but it also lends some authenticity to the movie, and the fact that it is like so detailed, step by step of how it all is, I think is kind of like a really smart decision on Mandel's part to kind of show that, because you only really needed that one scene, because once you show the authenticity of all that, first we get like, okay, he works on Hollywood. That's the first scene that we see. He's a special effects guy. He's known. We see his studio or his workshop where his apartment
Which
is.
might have a poster for Zombie in it, right?
There's a poster for Zombie. There's also a poster for a movie called Fade to Black, which is a great, very, very interesting, atypical horror movie with a fantastic score by Craig Safin. And I think, doesn't the next movie Noonan's in, doesn't Monster Squad, don't they have a poster of Zombie in the clubhouse? They do.
Maybe?
They do, in fact.
Okay.
Which is really interesting.
Because I didn't know what that was when I was little. I didn't discover that until you in the 90s.
Yeah, I know. It's really interesting to see how often that Zombie poster pops up at a time where we obviously saw those movies as a kid, but we didn't know that movie. So it didn't mean anything to us then, but it means something to us now. But my point is only that we establish his job. We establish that people know him for what he does. We establish that they hire him because he's an expert. But having that scene of him doing the cast of Jerry Orbach and having it be so authentically detailed then allows us as an audience to buy every aspect of the special effects that come later, even if they're far-fetched or how far-fetched they may go. And they didn't really go that far-fetched in this one. They get a little more outlandish in the second movie.
Yeah.
But it gives a clear, like, subliminal indication to the audience that, like, okay, we buy him as this character. We buy that he does this. And now we can suspend disbelief for the rest of the movie because we see it here. It's really, I thought, a really interesting and well-placed device in terms of like the dramatic storytelling of the movie. Yeah,
so, Orbach leaves. He starts getting the special effects ready, and then I think you have that where Mason Adams, they're walking across that very iconic location on the east side, I think below Park Avenue maybe, or something, where that footbridge that overlooks the one of the avenues, Lexington maybe, or Park, and he's like, we want you to be the hitman, and he's like, I can't be he's like, because there's a pattern, with it's blanks, it's radio controlled, you get the setup that Orbach has the pacemaker, and oh boy, I can't, but you get the indication, which I could have been played up more, but how much of a scoundrel Orbach is, because you have him reading the papers, Bryan Brown, and he's like, wow, he's really a bastard. He's looking at the stuff, so it sets up that he is a real asshole. He's kind of like a Sammy the Bull, where he's killed a bunch of people, but he's getting away with it because he's testifying. So they kind of convince Bryan Brown, they're going to pay him like $30,000 in cash, tax-free. They hand him an envelope, and they're like, "This, take this money. This is what you're doing, something good for your country." And they twist his arm to be the guy who's going to walk into the Italian restaurant that night and publicly kill him in front of everybody there. But then he does say to him, don't worry. He's like, what happens when I get in there? He's like, it's going to be all of our people, which is like, well, if it's all their people, there's got to be regulars in there. Like, there's got to be some poor, imagine, your parents or your grandparents, they're going out for, granddad's birthday, and they're going into the city, and they go to this expensive restaurant they've had reservations for 6 months, and they're going to go see the Cats, and they go to they see this thing, and then your granddad has a heart attack and he dies. It's like there's a lot of things that could go wrong. I mean, they're not shooting real bullets that we don't know, but it seems like something could happen, or what happens if somebody tackled Bryan Brown,
The one thing I don't buy,
agrees
though,
to do it.
the one thing I don't buy is they set up that like Cliff DeYoung's character Lipton, he was playing with the gun in the truck before they do the trick or whatever, the scene where,
because there's a scene where they bring Jerry Orbach to the truck, the step truck, and he starts putting all the stuff onto Jerry Orbach. Yeah. He has to put the chest on him where the squibs are going to be. He puts stuff over his face. He gives him a wig or hide the electronics, that'll blow everything. And then while that's happening, Cliff DeYoung starts playing with the revolver that he's going to use. And he's like, put that down. He's like, sorry,
And so the one thing that I don't buy is that Bryan Brown didn't check the gun.
Again.
Yeah. Because that's like,
I thought he would have checked it a couple.
Maybe pre The Crow, like they were more loose with the way they handled firearms on set. I'd like to think that's not true.
But this is Vic Morrow. This is what happened right after Vic Morrow, so you think safety would have been everyone's concern. And you're right, since he's working on a movie set, he would have checked a couple times to make sure that he's not he doesn't have live ammunition.
In fact, blanks in the gun and not that everything's okay, because especially if you saw somebody fucking with it. So then that's like foreshadows the fact that like he doesn't know if he killed Jerry Orbach or not, because he's like, I don't know, the guy was fucking with the gun and for some reason it slipped my mind to check, and I think
some guns could be modified where they might not be able to shoot real ammunition through them. I might be wrong, but I think like Die Hard 2, you have remember they had the different tape of what had blanks and who didn't, but I feel like there are some weapons that are modified that you can't actually shoot a real round through it. They're only made to shoot blanks, because the idea with the blank is all you're doing is just, you don't have the projectile, you just have the gunpowder, so you see the flash and nothing's being shot out of it. But from my experience, I shot blanks when I was an extra in The Departed, and there's so much in it. It's it's really bright. I was shooting, I think it was a 40 caliber or Glock at a shooting range in the scene. And when it was shooting, it was, you want to see that muzzle blast for the camera. You want to see that flash. So I was feeling it on my face because it was so big, the fire, so, I don't know. You're right. You think he would have shot it, but then it gives you the idea. He goes in there, shoots him. It's 5 times in the head, 5 times in the chest, and once in the head, and he falls. And then he suddenly realizes when everything goes south that, maybe he might have actually killed him, and he doesn't know
which is interesting.
What's going on.
I mean, which is a great plot device. It's just, it's hard to not wonder, why didn't he check it? I mean, I guess back then you wouldn't have thought about that. But now, I said,
that's the problem.
Being post-Crow, now knowing the art of illusion in movie making, now we think of it, but I guess in '86 nobody would have questioned it. But that's the only thing that now as an audience member I look at him that's a far stretch that he wouldn't have checked the gun. But like I said, maybe in '86 nobody would have thought of that. But it's a great plot device, because not only do you have he's on the run because they tried to kill him, so he's trying to figure out. He doesn't even know who to go to, because those were the police. But then
he jumps out of the. But then jumps out of the restaurant.
But my point is only that then you have this part of maybe I did kill him. I don't know.
Yeah, and so you're going both ways, or it's you don't know what to do. Because he jumps in the car with Cliff DeYoung, and then they're getting away, and then all of a sudden Cliff DeYoung turns the gun and tries to kill him. He fights with the gun, and they crash the car into a construction area where the Rambo 2 posters are. He gets out and runs. Then he makes a call to Mason Adams from a phone booth, and he's like, Cliff DeYoung just tried to kill me. He's like, Cliff DeYoung tried to kill you? Lipton? He's like, yeah, the guy playing Lipton tried to kill me. What? Have you tried a Nuprin? No, I haven't tried a Nuprin. He's like, I better go up to the oil derrick in the North Pole. So he says, stay where you are. Tell me where you are. So, and I didn't see this coming, which was actually pretty cool. Was it he hangs the phone up in the phone booth. He gets a knock on the door. Somebody else is waiting to use the door. He gets out, and it's pouring out. And he Brian Brown goes and hides in the shadows or under a eave to get out of the rain while he's waiting for someone to come pick him up, and someone's using the phone. And all of a sudden you have like an RMP, a police car, come around the corner with the lights off, and they have just 2 machine guns, maybe Uzis, and they just destroy the guy in the telephone booth. They get out, they look, and they think it's him because it's a white guy, his height, his build, whatever, and they're like, yeah, we did it, and then they speed away, and it's very horrifying. You're like, oh my God. That was, so now another level of, Brian Brown thinks he's going to the boss. And so it does have that espionage 70s kind of spy movie kind of a feel where you don't know who to trust and, who's on your side or whatever. So, what's the first thing he does? He runs home, right? He goes to his apartment. He's hiding in the shadows. What's his girlfriend, Diane? She comes home, he grabs her, and he's like, get in, and they go in. And this is what I was saying to you when we watched it. I was like, they end up like making love and spending the night in his apartment.
Well,
and I'm like, why are you spending
in that scene? It's her apartment, I think.
Is that her apartment?
Yeah.
Oh, he's okay. So I guess that's a little more believable. Like I thought they just went back to his place, and because they showed him before. I got confused. I thought that studio of his, because I don't know. I thought it was the same place because I thought it had a living quarters and then it had another area where the...
it did. They're both like loft spaces, but hers is laid out kind of differently than his. Because
he throws the keys out, down to Cliff Young when he comes up, and I thought that was the same place where they spent the night. And they had anyway. So I was like, why the hell are they spending the night there? But if it's her place, I think he probably feels like he has a level of security. So, and then I don't see the twist coming. She gets killed.
Yeah.
She opens the blinds after like a nice romantic morning, and she gets a sniper gets her, and then it's like it's like he doesn't really almost check her. He just assumes since the bullet went through her in the chest, she's dead.
Yeah, there's no like, are you okay? Or I need
try to grab the body or
or
stop the bleeding.
Nothing.
Just let her. No, nothing. He just more, and then the guy who's the sniper comes over the house, and then there's this big fight, which is a great, they talk about the director, Mandel said that he looked at like movies like Bullet and French Connection, those action sequences to try to see how to have realistic action sequences in this movie. And this is a good fight scene where, they fight each other in the apartment, and he's throwing everything at the guy because the guy's a professional killer. Yeah. He gets the guy off guard, and he ties the guy's hands up, but the guy's able to still fight with his legs, then he flips his hands in front of him, and then there's this great sequence of the stove turns on, and
Well, this is kind of the scene that I was indicating earlier when we were talking about the editor Terry Rawlings, who great top-notch editor. Allegedly, I don't you never know what kind of information you can find online, secondhand information, but allegedly they cut this scene. Rawlings cut this scene. Which is, like Dion's saying, great scene. Very exciting, suspenseful, like a fight scene. The burners.
It's like a professional against like us.
Yeah.
So, the professional has his hands literally tied behind his back, but he's still a deadly weapon with his legs and stuff. And this guy's just throwing pots at him, Brian Brown.
It's like, the burner's on for tea, and so they're struggling over by the stove, and the burner's
and he's
on.
like sticking his face on his, yeah.
But supposedly, they cut this scene and they showed it to the people at the studio. Because I don't know, I didn't get a kind of indication as to like, were they running over budget? Was the studio concerned because Mandel had never directed action? But supposedly they showed that scene to the studio, and the studio was like, oh, like this is good, like this can work. So they ended up giving the production and Mandel like another $1 million or something for the chase scene, to like amp up the intensity of the chase scene, to be like, okay, like this can work. So it was like Terry Rawlings' editing of that fight scene ended up convincing the studio to pump a little more money into the project so that they could up some of the action scenes later in the movie.
So then we've gone through this chronologically just because this is suddenly where then Brian Dennehy's character shows up with his partner because he's called to investigate this murder, and he's mad that he wasn't on the DeFranco case, which is the Jerry Orbach case. Jerry Orbach now was supposedly killed, so there's a lot of bumbling in the office. Cliff DeYoung shares an office there. What's his face is his boss from Sesame Street, Brian Dennehy, and Bryan Dennehy smells there's something foul going on here, so he starts doing his own investigating. He goes to the lady in the records, and he's helping her. She's breaking into the computers to find out who these people are, because all these assassins don't have names or IDs, but they're using their fingerprints. So Bryan Dennehy puts it together that there's something going on wrong here. Then
it's another aspect of the movie that I said, like, the plot of Bryan Brown doing it and then being on the lam, like, it's a little convoluted as to how that all comes about, and not even in a bad way. It's something that I actually appreciate about the movie. It's the same thing going on here with Bryan Dennehy's character, which is like he's investigating the murder of Bryan Brown's girlfriend.
Yeah, he's get called on a homicide, and he comes in, and it's the apartment in shambles with the dead guy, the dead assassin with his arms tied up, the woman who's now he moved to the bed. Bryan Brown moved to the bed, so he's trying to figure out what's going on here.
And so Bryan Dennehy's character, Leo, wants to be investigating the Jerry Orbach mob guy murder, but he's stuck investigating this other thing that he does, he sees as less important or less glorifying or whatever. And it was through his investigating that murder that he comes to realize that they're the same case. Which is a little convoluted, but not even, I guess convoluted is not the right word. Complex. I mean, this movie could be way more straightforward the way they execute this, but I appreciate the fact that it takes some detours to get to the finish line. You know what I mean?
Well, it's a little. They do that on purpose to try to murky it up. It's
Absolutely.
Almost like one of these.
And I love it about this movie because there are other movies, especially of this era, that probably would have taken this in a much more straightforward fashion. And though it would have been exciting, the suspense would have worked, there's something slightly more engaging about the fact that you're following it's weaving around a little bit to get where you need to go. And as a viewer, I just find it more interesting.
Yeah, and I completely agree that it could have been done differently in somebody else's hands, and this is just as interesting. And it's interesting how I would say Bryan Brown was a new face to audiences. Jerry Orbach, maybe the seasoned moviegoer would recognize him, or if he had a big Broadway career at that point. So if you were into the theater, you'd know him. But I say maybe Dennehy was the biggest person in this movie, and he doesn't show up until 45 minutes in. And they do it the old cop way, where he's under the gets the phone call and you see his hand come out to the hand that's the very Frank Bullitt kind of way. Who is it? Leo? Okay, homicide. Hangs up. And then Gordon from Sesame Street's keeping him on this case, and Dennehy's got a sweet ass mustache, by the way, we should mention. Then he's walking around with this awesome mustache. So then, as we wrap up, he calls his girlfriend up, his assistant, Bryan Brown. They get his a car out of hock because they had towed his car. And there's this big sequence because Bryan Dennehy's cop partners is sitting on the impound yard where the special effects truck is. They get it out. This is that big sequence you're talking about down in the meatpacking district. They have this big car chase where they're the cop is going after the FX truck to try to figure out what's going on. And she's great in it, the assistant. They get away, and then he does a great way to get her out because he doesn't want to get her more involved, so he leaves her there, and she gets pissed. Maybe that's why she doesn't come back for the second movie, And then he figures out, I forget how, but he figures out where they all are. So he shows up to the house at night. And then there's a nice sequence in Central Park where he first meets her, and then Tom Noonan's following her. That's really nice with the sailboat you can rent.
Yeah,
so at the end of the movie,
the chase scene is cool though, because it's like she's strapped into the back of the truck and she's dumping out
she's got the door open in the back and she's strapped in so she won't fall out.
Yeah,
because it's a big bulky truck.
She's dumping the things of silicone or blood or whatever onto the streets. To make it straight. And then I did remember as we were watching the chase this time, I remembered they're going to throw that old lady dummy
out. Yeah.
Which is what causes the cops to stop. It's a great.
It's a great little. So they throw it out. He turns the corner and he stops just in time. He gets out. He's like, "Oh my god!" And then someone rear ends him and it goes over. It's funny, he's like, "Ah!" So then they end up. Bryan Brown ditches her, takes the car up. They end up in Rye, which is right near where Blake and I went to college. Where this mansion is. And then there's the ending sequence where he's basically like a commando going in and he takes out everybody. Yeah, and he's pretty good. It's like the Punisher, Dolph Lundgren. It's like he kills all the guy, and I'm surprised that he takes it to that level because some of those it might not be a stretch to think that not all these guys are in on it. They're just part of the witness protection program, so they're just regular agents. One he electrocutes, one he blows something up in the face.
Yeah. Well,
another one gets shot.
This whole ending has not even just this scene, but even like the little epilogue of like what happens with Bryan Brown and Bryan Dennehy. It's so like you couldn't do this movie now in terms of that way. Like, yeah, it's just like
he's creeping around the house.
Unlike MacGyver, Raleigh Tyler has like no regard for other people's lives.
No qualms at all.
Understandable in that these are people are trying to kill him, and he's trying to save himself.
They killed his girlfriend.
It's justified, but also like
then there's the great sequence where he where they maybe that's how they figure out where he figures out where they are. They grab the one guy, they grab Cliff DeYoung, they put him in a trunk, and it's very reminiscent of Point Blank with Lee Marvin, where Lee Marvin's trying to get information for some guy, so he totals the car under these pillars. Tell me! And in this movie, Bryan Brown throws Cliff DeYoung in the trunk and then just starts trashing, hitting, rear-ending the car into pillars under the highway until Cliff DeYoung tells him where they are. So you're right. By the time he gets up to Westchester, he's got no regard. And it's funny because this is where I think Jerry Orbach shines. I think he's so great. I love Jerry Orbach regardless, Law and Order and stuff like that as Briscoe. But in this scene, he's fucking hilarious. He's like, he's in the fucking house. He's playing with the fuse box. He's so good, because then that's how Bryan Dennehy, however he does it, he storms in the office. He gets the number. He calls. The mansion. He gets Mason Adams on the phone, and he ends up getting in the house, and he's able to get to the fuse box. Like he knows where everything is. Yeah. So it's like not only is he able to jump the gate, get through everything. He like knows the layout of the house. So suddenly he's playing with the lights. He's hooking up stuff, very MacGyvering, but they're like stuff that'll kill people. I mean, he just comes in with a duffel bag. But then, like, when he gets them upstairs and Tom Noonan and the other guy are, like, prancing around trying to find him, he pulls out, like, a projector slide, and he's, it's like, where was he carrying that? And you hear him, like, he's, like, taking it, and, like, nobody hears him. And it's like, in a real world, they would come back right as he's pulling it all out.
I don't remember climbing out of the house with that thing, because he does pull, like, this giant, like, projector stand, and then...
Yeah, it's like he pulls this thing out and he mirrors, so it's a nice... So he gets everything, and then, the helicopter's coming to take the bad guys away. Jerry Orbach, he hooks the thing up so it'll get electrocution, so he knows. Jerry Orbach touches it. It signals his pacemaker. Freaking great. He's like, and then Mason Adams gets away, and he uses crazy glue on Mason. In another way, kills Mason Adams in a the cop shooting. Yeah, and it's great, too, because you have Mason Adams... Jerry Orbach grabs this Uzi. He's like, he's going to, kill. He's like, I'm not fucking around anymore. And Mason Adams is sitting there. And the whole movie, we've noticed subtle 80s camera shots that he's got a miracle ear. And then you have the sequence where suddenly has a realization that his miracle ear is picking up everything on the... because he hears him coming down the stairs. Yeah. But he doesn't tell Jerry Orbach. And you hear him, he's like starts twitching around with the ear. He's like, my miracle ear is hearing. So Jerry Orbach's killed, and then it ends up coalescing where, then Mason Adams is killed. They get the key, and then the ending is Dennehy's thrown off the force because they take his badge, the mean scene, and he goes up, steals Gordon's badge, and goes up to Westchester on his own, calls the state police, and foils everything. But you don't really know. At the end of it, it's like, Dennehy, I don't know if they ever meet? Like, Dennehy and Bryan Brown, they meet at, the very end, maybe? I forget how they end up meeting. But then the denouement is that they go to Switzerland, Geneva, yeah. And they go get the money that the whole point, which was the MacGuffin of the movie, is that Jerry Orbach, the reason why he's turning state's evidence is because he's siphoned all this money from the mob, and then the mob found out about it, so he was forced to then run to the cops to protect his own life. So they know that this money is in the safety deposit box. So at the end of the movie, they end up getting $15 million that Dennehy and Bryan Brown split. So
Yeah,
they had
yeah.
this very amicable. So it does take a left turn where it's like they become because then he would like, no, I'm not. I'm gonna either let you go or turn you in. But instead, he's like, I'll meet you in 2 weeks. I'll meet you in Geneva. And then the next scene is he goes in, and Mason Adams had said to you can't get in there without either me or Jerry Orbach because they know us. So he uses the mask and he goes in as Jerry Orbach.
Yeah.
And that's how he gets the money out. And then he gets to the car, he rips the mask off in the Mission Impossible kind of a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's suddenly Bryan Brown under Jerry Orbach. And then
it's like
they
it's
have
just
this
the
great
beginning of a
80s
beautiful friendship.
Yeah, and then they drive away, and they have this big helicopter shot that really doesn't go anywhere.
No.
Of them
It's
just
like
drive with this great
they're
80s
they're
score.
going to the Overlook Hotel after.
Yeah. And then they just kind of die. It's like they didn't really know what. So they just the helicopter has to go back and refuel, and they're like, okay, we can just now just cut to black.
And then
the
they
credits.
also just like cut to like shots from earlier in the movie of each of the characters, but it's not
But
even like
outtakes though, right?
But it's not even like Predator style. You know what I mean? Where it's like Carl Weathers. It's just like it's a
They
very
come up
odd
doing
choice.
something funny, and they're like laughing, like they bumble. They're like or something, and they laugh or look at the camera, and then So I know we have to segue, but I wanted to get all that in because it's kind of important for then the second movie that then. As we transition to the second, I think that's so this movie comes out and it does very good. $10 million budget makes $20 million. Some of the producers think that it could have did better if it didn't have the FX title on it because they were thinking like a movie like MASH or something that people would. Which I don't. Do you see that this movie being hurt in the box office because of its title?
I don't know. I mean, I never would have thought of that. I mean, it seemed like as
Neither
good a
would
title
I.
as any.
So that's why we have that subtitle, right? The Deadly Art of Illusion.
Yeah.
So who knows if it's not released overseas as that, but it does very well, and it does so well they want to give it a sequel. And
Well,
like a lot of
it's critically
the critics
acclaimed.
like it too.
The critics like it.
Yeah.
It gets favorable reviews for anything from like it's a fun ride to like it's like
The special
aesthetically
effects
really
hold
well
up.
made. And
Brian Dennehy brings magic to the role. He's large and he enlarges it.
yeah, and it's it is interesting in that like as you point out that like these are two different stories happening at the same time. And I don't even know if I don't even remember if Brian Dennehy and Bryan Brown meet until Geneva.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I don't. That's what I thought. Like he may realize it all.
Yeah.
And this guy's a clever son of a bitch. He goes over his apartment. He sees the monster, scares him. That jumps out, which I remember when I was little. The monster jumping out.
Yeah.
And his partner certainly knows all the Bryan Brown movies. But he kind of starts getting an admiration for the guy, and then he's the first one that feels like something's wrong.
Yeah.
So when he gets his badge taken and everything by the asshole who's under Gordon, and Gordon's like, I got to take your badge. And then Brian, it's like a real serious, sad scene. He's like, give me your badge and gun. And then he's like, puts his hands, and then Gordon, the chief's like, or the captain's like, I'm sorry. I know this is tough. I didn't want to do this. You're my friend. And then Brian Dennehy leaves, and they look at Gordon. They're like, he just pickpocketed you, and you don't have his gun. You don't have his badge anymore.
Yeah.
So that's funny.
One thing I will say
so,
about the first one, as much as I enjoy the first one and as much as I loved watching it again now for this, I wish, even then I remember wishing that there was like more special effects MacGyvering going on than that's actually in the movie. But all that aside, I don't know what prompted them to make FX2 because it's like 6 years later, which is a pretty long time. But it was definitely
one thing before we leave. There is a sequence we just did Marked for Death in February, and there's the scene in Marked for Death where they're going after the evil gang in their car, and they're in an SUV, and the gang's in a car, and they start driving on the sidewalk. And in that sequence where he's trying to get away from the cops, and he's in the step truck, and they're in the meatpacking district, they take a corner. And people jump for their lives. And then Bryan Brown just like, get out of the way, get out of the way. And you just think that's going to be okay. And there's people literally leaping. Again, your mom and your dad go to like the Gansevoort Hotel for a lunch, and then and he's run down because some guy took a step truck, because he's trying to get away. But we're with him. It's like, it's always these movies where you're like, Jesus, what happens if that's your... So there's people jumping for their lives, which I thought was hilarious. Right out of Marked for Death. So, but yes, you're right. There is a 5 or 6 year difference, and I wonder if it's just. I mean, you have Dodi Fayed. He comes back, and so he's integral in this. And Bryan Brown, I think Dennehy goes on to work with Mandel a couple of times in some other capacities. They do like 3 or 4 movies together, but he doesn't come back for the sequel. To direct.
Yeah, to direct. But Bryan Brown ends up being the executive producer of the sequel. So, I mean, he might have been kind of instrumental in getting it off the ground. I don't know what prompted it. Like I said, usually if a movie does really well and they do a sequel, then they'll kind of greenlight it right in production, and then by like 88 it would have been out. You know what I mean? Or 89. But it doesn't come out to 1991. But
I wonder if it's a career choice for Bryan Brown, because he does Cocktail in 87, 88. Yeah. That's huge. Maybe he goes back to Australia, does some stuff there, and then he's like looking for something to do, and maybe it's his impetus with Dennehy, because Dennehy at that time was doing some other stuff. We brought up before, Dennehy has an amazing portrayal of John Wayne Gacy in a made-for-TV movie that might have been Canadian done.
Remember Gladiators?
So Bryan. Gladiators, yeah, which is Cuba Gooding Jr. Yeah, they're doing a lot of good movies at this time. So they're both still doing a lot. I ended up seeing Dennehy on Broadway in Hair at the Wind with Christopher Plummer in 2007. Quickly, there's a story where my grandfather took a bus to see Denny. Everybody from the area, elderly, got on a bus, went to go see a play Dennehy was in, and it was a matinee like on a Sunday. And word got back to Dennehy after the play that people from Derby or from the next town over, that area, had come to see the play. So when the play was over, an usher came out and said, "Everybody who's from the Connecticut area, please hang out." And everyone else left, and I don't know, 20 or so people. And so then Bryan Dennehy came out with a stool, sat down, and he spent an hour with everybody just ansering questions.
Everybody else get the hell out.
Exactly. Everybody else. You and me, we'd be like, yeah, we're from wherever. That wouldn't be beneath us. Where are you guys from? Over there. So, for all intents and purposes, Dennehy was a really nice guy. And when I met him, he lived, he said, in Woodstock, Connecticut, which is way up by Massachusetts. So... lovely guy, but it's funny because he becomes this larger than life kind of a guy, and then by the time you hit FX2, he's mustacheless. So I don't know if I can trust him, but he's like a ladies' man. Everybody's saying to him like, we have not only do Bryan Brown and Dennehy reprise their role, but you have the girl who was in the records room, and he sent her to Jamaica in the first movie, and in this movie.
He jokes about sending her to Jamaica, and he never does. I don't think.
Well, I thought he was saying he would with her new date because she's dating around. But in this movie, in FX2, he shows her 2 tickets, and like she's been waiting the whole time. Because when in the first movie, when he gets the info, she gives him like whatever the puzzle piece is, and he's like, "Oh, Hardy, you're beautiful." He gives her a real heavy kiss on the lips and runs, which is like, you can't do that nowadays. So
sorry, Mr. Dennehy, that's not
that's not not nowadays. So then in the second movie, you realize there was some sort of, he was a ladies' man of Dennehy, so it was completely warranted because he's gonna go end up with her. So come to the second movie, like you're saying.
Yeah, well, second movie, I don't know why it takes so long to get to. But it's like they take my comment about the first one, which is like there's not enough FX MacGyvering happening, and they up it another level. Before we dive in, another credit list that's worth going into, directed by Richard Franklin, who's an Australian director, so maybe that was part of an impetus of Bryan Brown working with an Australian director. Richard Franklin sadly died in 2007, but even though he was an Australian director, he came to America to go to film school, where he went to USC and was a fellow student alongside George Lucas, Robert Zemeckis, and John Carpenter. Richard Franklin made the movie Patrick, which is a horror movie from the 70s that many of us remember. Psycho 2 he directed.
Fabulous.
He directed a movie called Road Games, starring Jamie Lee Curtis. He directed Cloak and Dagger, which Dion brought up earlier.
Yeah.
And he directed that movie Link, which is about like a killer orangutan. Interesting, a bit of trivia, allegedly, that while at USC, he really wanted to screen Rope, the Hitchcock movie. He was a huge Hitchcock fan. Ever since he saw Psycho as a kid, so it's kind of fortuitous that he would go on to direct Psycho 2. Both, coincidentally, Psycho 2 and Cloak and Dagger were written by Tom Holland, who went on to write and direct Fright Night and directed Child's Play, and I did a Fright Night on this Saturday Night Movie Sleepovers with Mighty Mike Vanderbilt. But so he was a huge Hitchcock fan, and he wanted to screen Psycho he wanted to screen Rope at USC, and he wanted to have Hitchcock come and do like a Q&A, and which resulted in Hitchcock giving him a call and him talking to Hitchcock on the phone, and then that led to them actually being friends. And you hear Carpenter talk about how he was there at USC, like Howard Hawks came and talked to the students, and Hitchcock came and talked to the students. So that might be the time Hitchcock came and talked to the students that Carpenter refers to. And
it was because of him.
It might have been.
It was because of Richard Franklin.
It might have been because Richard Franklin. And
how we got Dick Smith to come to our place, which we have a podcast about.
And the movie Road Games, which stars Jamie Lee Curtis, allegedly Franklin met Jamie Lee Curtis while visiting Carpenter on the set of The Fog.
Oh, wow, okay.
And that's how he met Jamie Lee Curtis, and then they worked together. The writer of the movie is Bill Condon, who wrote several great scripts and became a director. He wrote a movie called Strange Invaders in '83. He later wrote the movie Chicago in 2002 and The Greatest Showman, which is just a couple years old. But
Chicago's off the musical.
Yeah, he directed the Catherine Zeta-Jones,
Richard Gere, live action movie.
But he also directed Candyman, Farewell to the Flesh, but then also directed Gods and Monsters, the Ian McKellen movie from a while back that was
Brendan Fraser,
a big critical success. He directed Kinsey, the Liam Neeson
Love Kinsey.
movie. He directed the musical Dreamgirls, the movie.
Okay.
He directed
Eddie Murphy.
He directed Twilight Saga: Breaking Dawn Parts 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. He directed another Ian McKellen movie, Mr. Holmes, which is kind of interesting. I don't know if anybody's seen it, but it was kind of interesting. It was taking
Sherlock Holmes.
It was kind of taking the idea of Holmes is a real person, and all those movies and stuff are based on Watson's stories, but they're like a fictionalized retelling of what actually the stories were like. And he directed that kind of quote-unquote live-action Beauty and the Beast from a couple of years ago. So there's two Beauty and the Beast connections with this movie.
Yeah. Because and that was a big hit. That's the one I think that greenlit all these other live-action, Lion King and Aladdin.
Bill Conti, for some reason, does not come back for the sequel to do the music, but they get the great Lalo Schifrin to do the music.
Who we've talked about a lot on this podcast.
Who, did Bullet, Enter the Dragon, Amityville Horror, tons of really fantastic scores.
Dirty Harry, a couple of Dirty Harrys, Rush Hours even recently.
And if the director of photography of the first one was a big deal, wait till you listen to Victor J.
Mission Impossible, too, because we just brought up the Mission Impossible.
He did the theme for Mission Impossible.
He did a lot of themes. Yeah, he did a couple movies, but anyway. He's got a list that's longer than your arm.
Listen to this list of director photography credits for Victor J. Kemper, who was the guy that shot this movie. He did a Dion and Blake classic, Seamus, from 1973 with Burt Reynolds.
Burt the Reynolds, yeah. Well, that's a movie we should do on this show. Fabulous
It's kind
movie.
of like, that's the stuntman version of FX, kind of.
Yeah, it's Burt Reynolds doing all his own stunts in New York, and one of the early John Glover is one of his early roles.
He did The Gambler. He did Dog Day Afternoon. He shot
That was a big movie.
He shot Slapshot.
Wow.
He shot Audrey Rose, the horror movie from '77. He shot Oh God with George Burns
and Denver.
He shot Eyes of Laura Mars in '78. The movie Magic.
That's a big one of ours.
With Anthony Hopkins in '78 as well. And
I love that movie.
And Justice for All with Al Pacino. The Jerk. The Final Countdown.
Jesus.
Xanadu, Mr. Mom.
Jesus. Wow.
National Lampoon's Vacation and National Lampoon's European Vacation.
We may have to induct him right now into the
Saturday Night Movie
Sleepovers Hall of Fame right now.
Because
open up the fridge.
Cloak and Dagger, Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Come on.
So he's been on the show before. It's Slapshot. We did Slapshot, but then Pee-wee's Big Adventure. We also did Clue, which he shot.
That's 3. I feel like you've already named one he was on.
Here's one.
Right.
Here's a movie that Dion will appreciate. He shot See No Evil, Hear No Evil with Richard Pryor.
That's one of my and Gene Wilder. That's what Kevin Spacey of all people too. He's the bad guy now.
He shot Beethoven. He shot Tommy Boy.
Wow.
And many, many hundreds of other.
That's
movies.
not. It's Black Sheep is the one with Dennehy, right? Not Tommy Boy. Which one is the one that his father dies?
Tommy Boy.
His father dies and he has to get the business, but that's Dennehy. That's what he does after this.
Yeah.
And that's a great role because that endeared him to younger audiences.
Yeah, but that crazy, impressive director of photography credits, and of course we have another cast of familiar faces, some of which have appeared on the show in terms of obviously Bryan Brown and Brian Dennehy return, Rachel Takatin.
Yeah.
Returns. So she doesn't return to the movie. She wasn't in the first movie, but she's been featured on 2 episodes of Saturday Night Movie Sleepovers. She was.
Yeah, she plays his girlfriend in this new movie.
Yeah,
it's
the
romantic interest.
Was previously featured on episodes of Saturday Night Movie Sleepovers for Total Recall, and for
our most controversial episode,
Falling Down.
Falling Down. Yeah. Previously on Ready to Die. Yeah, that's both of ours. So she's been on twice. Great work in Total Recall. And I get her confused sometimes because I met the lady who's in Running Man, the female lead in that, and she's not in a lot of movies, but I think of her when I think of Total Recall. But yeah, she's great in Total Recall. Yeah. I hadn't remembered that she was in this until then, until she came up, and I'm like, oh yeah, look who it is. We've got a lot of interesting people that were in this that have been in a couple of our catalog.
Well, like Kevin J. O'Connor plays a small part as kind of a snitch in this movie, and
he's young in this.
Yeah, he's pretty young. But he was in. We did. I still love that we did this movie, but we did an episode on Color of Night, and he's in that movie.
Yes, he is. He's one of the people there
with Bruce Willis and Lance Henriksen. And
well, Blake wanted to tap into that erotica, the video store
we
erotica.
Should return to that at some point. The erotic thriller.
Yeah, do like Silk Stockings or some sort
Basic
of
Instinct. We should do, but he's also in a movie that I have a great affection for, which is Lord of Illusions, the Clyde Barker movie starring Scott Bakula and Famke Johnson.
Thought you were going to say Land of the Dead. He's in that as well, but he's in a bunch of movies. He's always He's in Speed 2, maybe. He's in that. Isn't he in that Treat Williams movie where they're getting away from the monsters and they're on the
he might be. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Rising?
Deep Rising. I think he's in that. He's in a bunch of movies. Still making movies and stuff like that. We got a lot of Phil Bosco, who's been in a lot of stuff. Joanna Gleason's been in a lot of stuff.
A lot of shit from when we grew up.
Yeah, so there's a lot of familiar faces in here. There is somebody I do want to talk about, but I'll get to him when we get to him. But who else is? I feel like so. There's just so many people that you look. Oh, then we didn't mention, which I didn't pick up on in the first movie. Evidently, that's Angela Bassett's first appearance in a movie. She's one of the reporters after DeFranco dies.
I didn't see.
And they're
her.
at the hospital, and everyone's trying to he was shot dead. When that's when. He assassinates Orbach. But yeah, I didn't see her either. And then I read it, and then we watched the movie, and then when I read it again, I said, Blake, I didn't see her. And you're like, I didn't see her either. And I was like, well, Jesus. So I was trying to figure out, I was like, oh, she must have been in that sequence then. She's one of the reporters.
Yeah.
But it just happened so quickly. So this movie, so he retires from the business. And this movie was shot more in Toronto, but again, they do use some great, they do shoot elements in New York. So there is some sequences that are really cool that are in New York. Yeah, and that really grounds it in New York, so you don't really notice per se that they are doubling for Toronto when they are doubling for Toronto. Yeah. The soundtrack by Lalo, it's very
dated
of its time. Yeah, it's so it's a lot going on. I mean, you have like capsule. I don't know what you call the chimes.
Yeah.
Like a lot of that kind of stuff.
A lot of rock guitar.
Like the Dreamcatcher.
A lot of rock guitar,
synth.
more synth sound. Oddly enough, more dated than Conti's score.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like what Lalo was doing, because Lalo's coming from that heavy jazz background, and when he gets into that era,
which Conti was too. But Conti's scoring for the most part, even though he took detours to do things like in synths with like Nomads and stuff like that. Conti was best known for pretty big orchestral scores, even though the Rockies movies didn't have huge orchestras. And have a lot of have a contemporary rhythm section, but balanced out with like a lot of horns and strings, and so even though there's probably some synths going on in Conti's FX score, it's probably more augmented with some orchestra, which causes things to not be time stamped so specifically to the time of the movie. Even though Conti's score does sound very 80s, it just sounds more.
It's more forgiving, I guess.
More timeless in a way than Schifrin's score, which is like total like early 90s sound. But that also comes with technology that they're using. Yeah. It seems like it's state of the art of the day, but then everything that you think is state of the art today is going to be old fashioned later. And so it has a certain sound, not just from the synths he's using, but just the recording style. And when I say dated, I don't even mean that in like a bad way. It's just like Dion's saying, it's very much of the time. It's like a time capsule, timestamps FX too in the early 90s, which I'm totally fine with because it's a very nostalgic time for us.
Yeah, I find a lot of his earlier stuff not as dated, like, say, the stuff he was doing in the 70s. He does the first two Dirty Harry movies. He doesn't do the third movie, The Enforcer. He comes back and does Sudden Impact. I don't know if he does the last Dirty Harry movie, the Deadpool, but I bring it up because the third movie, Sudden Impact, which is like 82 or 83, his soundtrack is very 80s. So he's taking a lot of this. There's different scores for 1 and 2. Magnum Force has its own big theme, Dirty Harry, but there is a suite that they bring up throughout the movie of like Dirty Harry's theme or this, so there's a play on that in each movie. So by when time you get to the 80s and Sudden Impact, it's very like this score. It's very much in the 80s. And I couldn't offhand point to other stuff he was doing at this time, Lalo, but I wonder if there is, in the 80s, he was, he's been around since the late 50s or 60s. Blake and I, we've talked about, we saw him live at the Blue Note, and we had a conversation with him, and he signed my, Bullet CD soundtrack, and I was going to have a longer talk with him, but some guy butted in and talked to him the whole time about something else, and Blake and I used to joke, because if anyone's ever gone to the Blue Note in Manhattan, it's like you walk in and there's the restaurant bar where the stage is, but then to the left there's stairs and you can go upstairs, and I think that might be where the bathrooms are, but there's some other areas, and that might also be where the dressing rooms are, the green rooms. So where Blake and I we're against the stage, right up against the stage, literally, and our eyes were facing the entrance of the Blue Note, and you could see the stairs, and you and I would see Lalo would poke his head around. Remember?
Yeah.
He was looking, and me and you were like, "Oh, Lalo just wants someone to talk to. No one's talking to Lalo." And he was just like, "Look," he'd be like, looking around, and that was when you and I were like, "I'm going to go talk to him." And that I went up there. You either came with me or you didn't, and I got him to sign my CD at that point. Very nice. But then some other guys started talking in front of him, and I spent 15 minutes in the trying to talk to him. But then this other guy's just like,
Dion always gets cock blocked when he sees celebrities out and about
in public.
To talk to
them.
It happened with Shatner too, right?
Yeah, it happened with.
Was it Shatner or Peter Weller that happened to you?
No, Weller. They all wanted money at the Star Trek convention some years ago in New York at the Javits Center, and I wouldn't. It was ridiculous. It was like $100, whatever. So, and then you couldn't take pictures or whatever. So I was like, no one was standing next to Weller. He was just by himself with an assistant. So I said, I'm going to go up to him, and we talked about this in whatever movie we did Weller. But I'm going to go talk to him about his Ithaca, being a professor, and those History Channel documentaries. And as Blake knows, I always try to go in with something that's really on the B side, and that's how I get the people to start talking. What's his name? From Jaws and Mr. Holland's Opus. Richard. I met him at work, and everybody was talking to him about Mr. Holland's Opus, Jaws, or Close Encounters. I went up to him and I said, "I just want to tell you how much I loved you and Tom's Stoppard's Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. And he's like, and he says to me, he goes, what's your name? I go, Dion. He goes, Dion, it's only once every 10 years I get a compliment like that. And I said, well, thank you, Richard. And then we had this long talk, and then we started talking about the movie and that, and then, so I try to go up to him with something like minuscule, but then when I'm in the public, this is getting back. Weller was fine, great. I talked to Weller, he loved it, shook my hand. He's like, thank you so much. Reality shows killed that show. I'm so pissed. It sucks. It was a great show. And then when I go, we're like, listen, if we're going to pay money, we'll pay money for Shatner. Let's get an autograph Shatner. We pay $100. We walk up to him. We start talking to him about like The Swarm or The Devil's Reign. And then some other guy who I think was on the spectrum with something. He had like an Enterprise model that had everybody signed. And he comes up and he starts having another conversation about, look who I got, whoever to sign it here. And then Shatner starts talking to him, and we're like, and then he eats all of our time up because there's somebody behind us. And it's like, motherfucker, we paid $100. And I've met Shatner 2 other times at work aside from that. And yeah, I'm not going to bother him too much. He signed my Devil's Reign, or I shook his hand and told him I liked him in that Westinghouse Steve McQueen episode that he did on TV. But it's like, when you're paying the money, you want to have that 30 seconds with him, and then somebody else. So
you get like a minute. It's
yeah, come on.
And you want your minute.
It's not like, I'm paying. It's not like the nicest of your heart. You're signing my thing for free, and I understand you're busy. You got to go, but I paid $100 for a headshot. It's like, please give me 2 seconds. My wife wants to compliment you and tell you how much she loves you, and so. That happens a bit, and that happened with Lalo when we were at the Blue Note. So getting back on track.
But
then they say that additional music by Michael Bodiger, which I don't know what that means. He filled in. Maybe he just did the wraparounds.
A lot of people do. A lot of scores have additional music by. I have yet to. There's someone that I'm trying to talk to for Score to Death, who has scored some things, but he has a lot of like additional music credits, and I would love to if I ever get to talk to him, I'm going to talk to him like, what does that mean? Like he has additional music credits like on all the Raimi's Spider-Man movies.
Oh, really?
So I want to talk to him like, what does that mean? Do you get a call that's like, we need, or does like Danny Elfman call and say, look, I'm behind. Can you write? Can you take these scenes, or I need 30 seconds here or 30 seconds. I don't know what that means.
Like Shirley Jackson used to do a little bit for him.
Walker.
For Elfman in particular. Shirley Walker. J.J. Walker. Dynamite! And then also there's something where there was a personal tragedy in Richard Franklin's life, and they say that a guy named Vic Armstrong came in and directed the last few weeks of the movie. I guess something went on.
I've heard 2 different stories about this. This is another one of those things. Well, Vic Armstrong was a Hollywood stuntman and stunt coordinator. Like he was Harrison Ford's stuntman on a few movies. Like Empire on like Return of the Jedi and stuff like that.
And while you're at Harrison Ford, they say that Harrison Ford passed on doing this originally in the first movie. That and maybe Richard Gere, they asked. Rumor, what ifs what ifs that Harrison Ford in '86, and he was like, no, thank you. I'm going to do Presumed Innocent.
What ends up happening a lot it seems to me, what happens a lot with some stunt guys is that some of them go into directing, like
Hal Needham.
But a lot of them go into doing second unit directing, because a lot of the second unit, while first unit is doing all the stuff with the characters, a lot of times second unit ends up going and doing a lot of the action scenes where you can't see the stars anyway, whether it's a chase scene or and stuff like that. So it seems to me that a lot of the stunt guys end up going into second unit because a lot of the stuff that second unit ends up directing are like action-y scenes. And Vic Armstrong...
Did we bring Armstrong up for Temple of Doom?
I don't know if we did or not, but Armstrong...
Harrison hurt his back, remember? And he had this stunt double there for a number of weeks doing other things, so maybe it was Vic Armstrong.
Maybe it was him. I'm not sure if he was still doing it by then. Because he was... They say, what you've read is that something happened with Franklin, and then they had to have Vic Armstrong... They called in this guy, Vic Armstrong, to come in and do a couple of weeks of the movie. Vic Armstrong was the second unit director of FX2. So it's not like they called up some other guy. They just asked... allegedly the second unit guy to step up and direct the rest of the movie. Dion saying that from his research, found that there was some kind of personal tragedy or something that occurred that made Richard Franklin step out of the picture towards the end.
Some sort of personal problem.
From what I was hearing was that he was having creative differences with the producers, but I tried to find interviews. I really wanted to figure out like what happened.
There's nothing on this,
but I could
either one of these movies.
Yeah, there was so little information on, especially FX2. But from what I heard is I don't know the extent of the differences, but apparently they were so bad that he got fed up with like American filmmaking, and he went back to Australia and never made another American film.
You do hear that. I feel like my memory's terrible, but I feel like we've had in the past like English directors or other people. I mean, look at Kubrick. Kubrick left the freaking country after Spartacus and stayed in England the rest of his life and just did everything over there. But I feel like we've had other instances where people just get really fed up with the Hollywood process and they're like, fuck you guys. Screw you guys, I'm going home. And they just leave. You know, this was his last American movie right before he went back to Australia, the director.
And then he ended up passing, Richard Franklin ended up passing away in 2007, and I don't know from what, but clearly, you know, youngish. So I don't know the extent of that story, whether it was a death in the family or some kind of social, private things that were going on that caused him to pull out a little bit early, but... or if it was that he was just having issues with the studio or the producers and then just got fed up and left the production. Either way, there's an indication that Vic Armstrong came in at some point and maybe finished the picture, but I didn't get any kind of indication that like he directed half the movie. It seemed like he came in and maybe did the pickups or just did like the kind of like the tail end of it. Plot wise, you know, they're both rich men now, Raleigh and Leo, because they kept the $15 million from the first movie, supposedly. And
from Geneva, so he's retired now from the business.
Brian Brown left the special effects business to make toys.
Yeah, and they look like they're kind of dangerous toys that he's making.
High-end, dangerous toys.
Like that you sell like FAO Schwartz or some sort. And then we learn either Brian Dennehy took early retirement or was not fired, but let go of the police department. And he's now out of it. He's no longer a police officer. He took his money and bought an old speakeasy bar that nobody knows where it is. It's, you know, it looks exactly as it was when he bought it. So it looks like he lives in a bar almost, with billiards and stuff like that, which is really cool. And he's driving this really awesome black checkered cab that looks right out of Escape from New York. What's his face? Ernie Borgnine's car. Wait till I tell Eddie. Like a cab like that, you know.
Eddie's become a private detective.
And he's become a PI. Yes, he's in because they bust his ass, bust his balls about like, you know, you're in the mayor. Because usually with the PI business, I guess when if you're doing marital stuff, you're on the low end of stuff. You're like, that's the racket that people don't completely respect because, you know, that's a little personal for people when you're snooping on other people's relationships or getting blackmail. So, he's doing that kind of work. And they keep, when he ever sees like former other cops he used to work with, they kind of, you know, pushes buttons like, you're still doing marital work, asshole? And, you know, and Joanna Gleason, who's kind of seems like a romantic interest for a minute, who's, I think, the DA in the movie, kind of, you know, pushes his buttons a little bit.
As you indicated, I mean, I don't know, since we've been recording for a while, I don't know if it's worth going in kind of like with as much of a description as we did for the first movie.
Why not?
Maybe we're
here.
Maybe we could just hit some of the major set pieces. But as you kind of indicated when we were talking about the last movie, foreshadowing this movie, that like Dennehy's a bit of like a ladies' man. He's a charmer. And,
I mean, he's got some sort of presence that's very, you know, it's like a Telly Savalas, evidently. He took his mustache off. He's mustacheless in this movie, and he's wearing his Boston Red Sox hat, and, you know, and it's like the team is back, and it almost like, you know, I almost wish, Bryan Dennehy sadly has passed away, and that's a great loss. But it would have been awesome for like A&E or PBS to pick up this show and have it be like a detective show, like on American Masterpiece. Just them doing something awesome. But that would have been really, really cool. The two of them, investigating murders every week.
But the reason where I was going with this is like he's got a woman in every port because he's got
everybody knows him
because he's got the woman from the records room that Dion was talking about, who's in the first movie, in this movie, and he's making his move on her in this movie. But he's also got like this chemistry, potential love interest going on with Joanna Gleason, who plays the assistant DA in this movie.
Yeah, he loves them and leaves them.
Like as Dion indicated at the beginning of this podcast 5 hours ago, that FX2 had a great trailer, and it was what got me excited about this movie.
Sure.
And going back and watching it now, the only things I remembered about it going into it were the effect with the shower scene.
Oh, okay. I didn't even remember that.
And because, boobs were a big deal for like a 12-year-old.
Yeah. and there's some boobage there. There's fake boobs, literally, and real boobs. So there's boobage.
The fake boobs were not as
no, not as appealing at all.
Not as appealing. But to catch a little glimpse of a boob for adolescent boys in the early '90s was a big deal because it was pre-internet.
Big deal.
You took it where you could get it back then.
Yeah, this is before you're still trying to find Playboys in the closet. But this is also, when I watched it, I remembered the sequence, the shower thing, because that was also a very ingenious MacGyverism kind of a thing.
Yeah. And then of course you remember the clown. Maybe
clown,
I like you, I didn't remember that he fights with the clown in that scene, but I remembered that he had the mechanical clown.
Because clowns were very scary as children. But people always point that out with the Poltergeist movie, the first one. But this movie this is a kind of freaky clown. And for me, I always remembered the opening sequence as well because that's kind of highlighted in the credits or in the trailer. So that was always something like you don't know what the hell's going on. The opening of this movie, where it's kind of like the first movie where you don't know what's going on at first and you realize that they're shooting a movie. There's this kind of car comes around a corner, crashes, and this thing gets out. It looks like a lady, and it almost then looks like a big guy in drag, and then suddenly the cops show up and there's a shootout, and the thing's getting shot, and there's green coming out, and then all of a sudden half the face gets blown off. It's a robot. The arm gets blown off the leg, and then something comes out of the blown out arm, and it shoots a missile, blows the car up, and then that's what they call cut. But it was and then there's green blood. It was such a crazy, you don't know what's going on. So when I saw that when I was little, I was immediately blown away. I was like, this looks freaking awesome. Just the wizardry of what's it was almost like that Gregory Hines movie, where he's running after the woman who's an alien or a robot. I forget the name of that darn thing. But for a minute, I wanted to, which is really interesting here. I didn't realize, when we're going through the credits, that there's an actor playing that cyborg named James Stacy. Mm-hmm. Now, James Stacy quickly is really interesting because he passed away in 2016, but he was an older actor of the 50s, 60s genre. He was an actor that was got his height in the 60s, doing a lot of episodic TV. He did some Donna Reed in the 50s and early 60s, Ozzie and Harriet. But he got a Western show called Lancer that was on for a couple years in the late 60s into the early 70s. And then he marries Connie Stevens for a minute, and then he divorces her. And then in 1970, I think it's 3, after Lancer, the Western, stops, he's taking his then girlfriend, Claire Cox, out for a ride on his motorcycle, and he's T-boned by a drunken driver. His girlfriend is killed. He loses his leg and he loses his arm. So it was this huge thing where there was a big deal, blah, blah, blah. He had all these medical bills piling up because because of all the expenses of what happened. Connie Stevens, his ex-wife, Frank Sinatra, who he's friends with, Barbara Streisand, all these people hold this big fundraiser and raise like over $100,000 for him for his medical expenses. And then he sues the drunk driver and he wins in 76 like $1.9 million in damages from the drunk driver.
I guess he's lucky that the drunk driver had money. Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it was in Beverly Hills when it happened. It was in the Hollywood Hills that all this happened. So maybe it was somebody with money, like you're saying. So in 1975, you know, he's a little dejected because he only has at this point one arm and one leg. So Kirk Douglas helps him have a comeback in this 1975 Western called Posse, and Kirk Douglas gives him a specific role in the movie. He has a great comeback. He wins a bunch of awards. He's in Something Wicked This Way Comes. He's the bartender in that movie. I first came to my attention because he's in an episode of Cagney and Lacey that I was watching a couple years ago, because he becomes a romantic interest. Then he's like, well, do you not like me because I'm in a wheelchair? And it's evident that he doesn't have an arm and a leg, so it's like, oh my gosh. So he was also married to Kim Darby, who I feel like we brought up in another podcast here. But evidently, so near the end of his career, he does this thing he's in that show for a minute, Wise Guys, that was on, or Wise Guy that was on in the Wise Guy that was on in the late 80s. And this is one of the last roles he does before he retires FX2. So I'm wondering at that point, you know, he's in the movie, he's barely recognizable, and they probably cast him because he didn't have a leg and an arm, and he's in his like 50s or 60s at this point. So I don't know if that was him that was in drag when he got out, and he had, you know, you're like, oh my God, you know, what the hell? So I wonder if it just got too much, and he's like, you know, why am I still in this business? And then to just finish this out, because it's such a bizarre story, that this is 1991. 1995, he pleads no contest to molesting an 11-year-old girl, and he failed to appear for his sentencing, and the next day he's found in Honolulu because he tried to run away, and he's found in a hospital because he tried to attempt suicide by jumping off a cliff. But evidently he didn't make it or whatever. He didn't commit suicide, so he's brought to the hospital. He's extradited from Honolulu back to L.A., and they say, listen, we were only going to give you probation after all this, but because you ran, and then he was also arrested 2 other times in 1995 for prowling the homes of other girls, which I don't understand how he does that because he's got one arm and one leg. So if he's in a car or whatever the hell. So they say, listen, because you're a flight risk now, you're going to have to serve your time. So he serves 6 years in Chino for the molesting charge. He gets out, and then jump to 2016, he dies of anaphylactic shock in Ventura, California, after his physician is administering him an antibiotic injection. So he just ends up dying just because of that. And to top it all off, the reason I'm bringing all this up is last year, 2019, we had Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that Quentin Tarantino movie. There's a deleted scene in that where Timothy Olyphant plays him because his partner in the movie was the actor that, what's his name from 90210, who passed away?
Luke Perry.
Yeah, Luke Perry plays that character in the Western. So there's a scene that's in the deleted scenes of Timothy Olyphant and Luke Perry together because they're supposed to be in that Western Lancer. So Timothy Olyphant's playing James Stacy in the movie. So I know it just took a long time to talk, but it's just such a weird and bizarre career that I don't know if anybody our age even knows who the guy is. And then he's unrecognizable in this movie. I didn't even realize because at certain points it's a prosthetic, it's a robot.
Yeah.
You know that, and then they even play it that it's a robot because they have to turn it off, and then it starts walking past the Hollywood crew like, turn it off, and then this is our entrance to Bryan Brown because he grabs turns around, pours his soda into it, and that fries it, which, Jesus, from a Hollywood perspective would be terrible. Like, you ruined this $1 million machine.
Don't you think it would have been smarter if he just, like, turned it off?
Yeah, not been an asshole and poured...
Well, because he's in the know...
He'd know how to turn it off.
Yeah, he would know, he would know the tricks to turn it off, not just short out the system with some sticky soda.
Yeah. So then they start yelling at him, and then suddenly the director and the special effects guy recognize Bryan. So that's the end of James Stacy, R.I.P. But they recognize him in the crowd, Bryan Brown, because he's there watching with his son, or is it his girlfriend's son?
Stepson or...
Stepson.
It's not his son, for sure. It's either his stepson or, his... girlfriend's or fiance's son.
Yeah. So he's recognizing the crowd. They're like, come back and help us. And they're like, no, I'm retired. I make toys now and all that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And then as the movie progresses, the first thing we end up seeing is this toy he's made where it's this clown suit, which is at the time something they were doing, like Jim Henson and stuff were doing, where you do that, you get into a glove or something, and then you do the motion capture, and the computer kind of captures it. He's doing one of these things where you put the suit on, and then you could the clown, a full sized freaking clown that's about 4 feet tall or 5 feet tall mimics whatever you're doing. And it seems to be inherently very dangerous if it's a child's toy because, gosh, you could have a kid put the suit on and then beat up his parents because this thing evidently can beat somebody up, as we learn later on in the movie.
Yeah.
But so that's a quick aside there. For the opening, really caught my attention as a kid because this is 1990, 91. We're into stuff like Alienation at the time. We're into all these different shows that were kind of like Cyborg, Android. So, like, you know, seeing this crazy opening with no kind of frame of reference.
And like the animatronic
this clown thing.
You know, even
fabulous.
Even when they cut away from, I mean, clearly they use an actor who's missing limbs so that they can put like robotics, you know, prosthesis on him. But even when it's clearly an animatronic, you know, version of him, it's really good. I mean, that's
what I mean. It's frightening. It's like rah, rah, you can see inside of his head and stuff in the green shit. It's kind of scary looking.
You know, better than some other movies, you know, around the time or just before it.
Sure.
You know? So, you know, they're totally a great opening scene. I love that they use, you know, it's almost in a weird way like it's a remake of the first one. You know, it's one of those kinds of sequels where they take the original one, they use the structure, they try to follow
a lot
of
the same scenes.
You know,
like we're familiar with.
Yeah, like it opens with a fake movie, it ends with some European location. And
Bryan Dennehy doesn't come in till like 20 minutes in or a little later when he needs help because they haven't talked in a while.
You know, in between, you know, it's you know, Raleigh should have known better. He didn't remember what happened last time. He shouldn't have gotten involved with the cops one more time. But he ends up, in this case, kind of like witnessing something. And then he's kind of on the run from the police again, but for different reasons, different scenario. And again, kind of needs Bryan Dennehy to help kind of solve the mystery of what's going on.
That's silly. Yeah, I didn't think of the puzzle piece. What's her name? Who he's dating is divorced from her husband, who's the kid's father, and he's the cop, and he's the one that says, "Listen, we need your help." And you know, and he seems like a very nice guy, the ex-husband. So. He gives him a couple minutes of his time. He's telling him what's going on. And then again, he's thinking about it. You know, women are getting hurt or whatever. And it's funny. They do the old when a stranger calls maneuver. I feel like that Blake and I joke about from the Charles Durning movie, When a Stranger Calls, where they just lure. It's like almost entrapment, where they just lure this guy. It's like Peter Lorre's M. They pull this guy till he psychologically has to act. You know, it's like when Charles Durning, he makes the guy reoffend because the guy goes to jail, does his time for the opening sequence in When a Stranger Calls, and then I haven't seen the movie in 20 years since you and I watched it, but it feels like Durning is pushing him so hard when he gets out of jail, he almost reoffends because of
drives
that, you know?
him to reoffend.
Yeah, because he's got something wrong upstairs. He's like, I know you're going to do it again, and when you do, I'm going to be there. So it's like, that's kind of like here, where they set this thing up where where this guy is, it's almost like a rear window where this guy is at a hotel across the way or a room, and he's watching this girl shower, and they know he's going to act upon it with the knife. So that's why they need Bryan Brown, is they need him to set it up so it's safe. So it looks like the girl getting into the shower is showering, but in real, it's the ex-husband, who's the son of the guy, you know, the girl he's dating. He's going to be in prosthetics dressed up as a lady, so he'll be there as the undercover cop, a la Nighthawks, Stallone style, where he's going to be there with the dress on and in the bathrobe, except Stallone didn't wear boobs in it. So, you know, and it's great effects at the time. It's like, oh, okay, this, you know, where again we get that little montage like we had with Jerry Orbach putting the makeup on. You have him showing how he's going to do it. They set up the camera, and then, like, you know, the captain, what's his face, is a little horn dog. He's like, I'm going to stay in the room when they get the girl to take her clothes off. Phil Bosco, and then it goes wrong. Like, they have a fog machine, all this kind of stuff, and they've got remote receivers. Bryan Brown's even got GoPros. You know, he hides GoPros in the room ahead of their time, and he witnesses that there's somebody else in the apartment that slices the throat of the cop, and it's not even the guy they lured in there. But then all of a sudden the cops run in, and the guy doesn't even have blood on his knife. He holds his hands up, and they shoot him anyway. The captain Bosco, and they're like, "Oh, and then it's a pretty good sequence. And they run over, and the poor ex-husband is dead. The cop that was hiding as the woman in the shower, and that becomes the MacGuffin of what's his face? See, he's Brian Brown's running up there, and he passes the guy on the stairs. And he realizes that must be the guy, so he gives chase. They run after him downstairs, and then he almost gets run down. The guy's driving like a Monte Carlo, almost runs him down. And luckily he's able to get out of the way, and that guy gets away. And that guy almost becomes like a Terminator kind of a guy. He's pretty cool when he comes back and tries to kill him, or when the car, when he's chasing Brian Brown and Dennehy's appearance. But we can get to that in a second. So that sets up the issue of what's going on in the movie. And then you have this huge plot that we learn later on, which I'm into, but people kind of give it, critics gave it a little guff. It's like that the mob is connected to the Vatican and Michelangelo, these gold pieces that Michelangelo minted himself that were copies of what was up in the Sistine Chapel. And they were stolen years ago by this kind of jewel thief, a cat burglar that's now doing life in Rikers. So he's dying of some sort of emphysema or cancer.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't think anything of it. I went with it.
Yeah.
Since you mentioned that people might have, it does seem like a kind of plot where they're like, somebody had this plot for another. It's like,
Yeah. It's like they lift it on there. It's like, it's very involved.
Yeah.
But they kind of just brush off.
Well, what if we just took that and we made it an FX2? You know what I mean? Like,
and they're like, that's a great idea.
It was like somebody else's script for something completely different. Like, why don't we just use that in this movie?
Because you can have that. That could be a plot for a heist movie. That could be a plot for like one of those the Tom Hanks movies, the Da Vinci Code movie.
Yeah.
It could be like a Tom Clancy movie. It could be a 70s espionage, 3 Days of the Condor kind of movie. So yeah, they just took this template.
But I was
into
it.
Here.
I didn't think anything of it.
So was I. I loved it.
I went along for the ride. And it also gives them the opportunity to get some, like, we're going to shoot one day in a European country, so let's make the most of it.
Yeah, like we did the last time. We got Geneva for the last shot. We're going to get the Vatican in this
we'll
shot.
just spend a day on a helicopter.
Yeah.
We'll do the same in Italy for this one.
We'll end it the same way. Hey, that's what they do in the Dirty Harry movies. They always end it the same with the helicopter shot. And so once all that happens, and what I think they kind of realize that I was going to say Clancy Brown, Brian Brown is kind of is onto them. They send the assassin after him, and there's that great sequence because they have a pretty nice apartment, and it's the same kind of thing where he's fighting for his life in this beautiful apartment where he's the fish tank with the gun and all that kind of stuff, and all these great set pieces in this really postmodern 80s kind of apartment that he has with all the money he's got, and then he's able to put the clown costume on, and then that's the scene where he gets the clown to beat the guy up for him, which is kind of crazy. So sometimes you could tell there's somebody in the clown costume, and then when he picks it up, it'll change and it won't be somebody. So that's kind of freaky.
Yeah.
It's a doll sometimes, but sometimes it's like a Twilight Zone episode there.
Some great set pieces in this movie. I mean, that one is a big one. Clearly the shower scene we were talking about, not just for the boobs, but that like we're seeing the execution of an effect, which is like Dion said, kind of the equivalent of the Jerry Orbach molding scene. We're seeing the behind the scenes, and we're getting the wow factor of movie magic happen, coming to life in the context of the movie. The clown fight scene, big set piece, and then I feel like the next really big set piece is the grocery store, which is like now we're in Chase. Everything's going down. I do, before I get to that though, there is when he calls Brian Dennehy, he calls Leo and leaves a message. He should have said something like, "Hey Leo, it's Raleigh. It's happening again."
Yeah,
like I need your help. It's happened again.
They set it up like Dennehy's like Batman almost. Like, you don't see him at first. It's just a phone call and a voicemail, and they zoom in or something, and you don't even see him until he shows up in his black car.
Yeah. Well, they don't even just say like him like hit. You just see a finger hit the.
He just comes in. And
he's
so
like,
it comes in the frame, and you don't even see him yet.
Hey, it's Raleigh again. I don't know if you're getting these messages. And then you're right. Then he just like shows up in his Batmobile, old painted black cab, and saves the day.
Cab, and that's a great sequence because I think that's when there's the fight scene in the house. He gets outside, and then the killer in the Monte Carlo, I think it's a Monte Carlo or a Cutlass, tries to run him down. He's hanging on to the fire escape, but then Dennehy comes, pushes the car, and the car gets freaking the top cut off because it goes under a trailer. Yeah. So you think the guy's dead, and then all of a sudden the car starts reversing and it's stuck there. It's very scary. So he's almost like unstoppable. Yeah. And Dennehy opens the top of his car. He's like, "Get in!" Like he has a sunroof, and he jumps in. And Dennehy's got his, Boston hat on. It's like old times. They get away. There's a couple things where it's like so. It's funny, the video resolution. So while we were watching it, I was like, oh, I wonder if he's tape. It could just be a video feed. He watches the murder happen. Or is he recording? And we find out he was recording the feed. So what he's able to do is take the feed. And there's a lot of 80s tech in this, which I love.
80s movie tech, yeah.
Yeah, so you have like him painstakingly looking at the footage of when the fog machine is steaming up the place to simulate a shower. And that's getting it hard to see. He's barely able to see right at the moment when his friend is throat slit, but he's able to zoom in and he's able to hit that resolution button, and it's a movie magic where he's able to just the pixel resolution is so good that he's able to get a place.
I'm surprised he didn't then print it out.
Yeah, exactly. And but he's able to get a clear picture of the guy moments before he slits his son's the guy's throat.
But then it's great because then it's great because then it's like, oh, this is the guy, and then it's like the shot of the screen, and then the guy walks up the stairs.
It's freaky as hell.
Like he almost found out too late. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then I noticed in this movie, it's like when the cop who ends up getting killed is trying to get him to be a part of it. They walk outside. They're on the street and they're talking, and in the background you can see there's a Johnny Winter poster on the wall.
Johnny Winter show's coming up. Put it on the calendar. Yeah, it's
coming up someplace. So I saw that. I was like, oh, look at this freaking Johnny Winter in the background. And then you also get, so then they go over to the house. They go to the house and the cops are already there and they're trying to get, it's the father's house where I guess they used to live, and the kid has his own room there and the cops are already there looking through stuff, and they're looking through, and then suddenly you have the one cop who's on the computer, and the kid had a computer in his room, and he's putting the hard discs in, the little discs, and he's going through all these different stuff, and it's like a flashback of all that where you're putting a disc in,
this is my the little disc of Oregon and all Trail.
Yeah, this is my disc of Carmen Sandiego. So then you get the Beckard, and he's like, the kid just wants his games, so they let him take the games away, and that's very funny. But then later on, when Bryan Brown's scared for their safety, he brings them to the what's her face's sister's house to hide out in Jersey, and when they realize what they need, they call the kid up and they're like, we need you to send us the file. And I was like, this is 1991. And they're like, can you send it by modem? And I was like, oh my God. And the kid's like, sure, I could do that. And they're like, go to a computer store at the mall. Yeah. So he goes to the mall and he basically sends them an email attachment, right? It's like so high tech at the time, because I didn't have a computer for another couple of years in the house.
No, that was so high tech right there. That was like, hey, there's this thing called a modem and we can send information. Let's put it in the movie.
Yeah. And so so Dennehy goes back. We're jumping around a bit, but Dennehy goes to his old assistant from the first movie, the tech girl, and he has him call up, and she directs him, and then he starts sending over the info that's on the disc, which is this secret file that the MacGuffin of the movie that the cops really want because it was about the cops' involvement in this whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, what's going on is there's like an old unsolved case that the Bryan Brown's girlfriend's ex-husband, the father of the boy, has been, I guess, doodling around on, and he's going to solve it or something. I don't know why they need to kill him, but essentially, like, it's involved with this old. Apparently, it's set up that cops will take unsolved cases and they'll kind of work on them in their free time.
It's like Shit Bob or Shit Bar. I
Shit
couldn't.
Pile,
We
I
rewound
think
it
he
3
says.
times.
I think it's on the.
I couldn't remember what the.
I think he
oh,
says
Shit Pile. Okay.
Shit Pile. Like it's the Shit Pile because, he gets killed because he's working on this case, which is the case that Dion talked about earlier, which is like this thief steals while there's a Vatican exhibit at the Met. He ends up stealing these gold medallions that were pressed by Michelangelo of the Stations of the Cross or or whatever it is. The thing
It was like, either Sistine Chapel or the different stages of the
something
the
up to do with the Sistine Chapel, and they caught the guy, and the guy's doing life in jail, but they never got the medallions, and
he hit him somewhere.
So like all great New York cops in the FX movies, you have someone in a position of power in it for the money and willing to sacrifice everything and throw his. He's able to retire at any time he wants. He's been in the force that long, but he wants the big payday. And unfortunately, Bryan Brown gets caught up in the middle of that because he had cameras up and was able to witness this framing of this killer for the murder of Bryan Brown's girlfriend's ex-husband. And then, again, it becomes like kind of that Hitchcockian everyday man thrown into extraordinary circumstances on the run, and while trying to solve the mystery, to clear his name.
And get a little like vengeance for the cop because he was because he's connected to it personally with the son. As his dad and all that.
Yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, that's kind of how. And of course, this is an FX movie, so the mob's involved. I mean, they're very. It seems like you said, I kind of love that there are
check all the boxes.
Let's just what are we going to do? Let's kind of just like restructure the original movie, change the MacGuffin, and stuff. But I kind of love that about it. And like I said, we get a little more of. Bryan Dennehy being a bit of a ladies' man, playing it up, but we also get we do get some more special effects MacGyvering happening at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
But we just get good old-fashioned MacGyvering happening throughout the movie. Most notably when they're on the run from the Terminator hitman guy that Dion brought up before. He's
kind of like the guy from Commando. Do you know the bad guy that's in Inner Space?
Yeah.
The Australian guy. Yeah, he kind of has that kind of like scary. You don't know if he's going to take his finger off and use it to shoot at you.
But he goes to the mall. I guess he follows the mom to the mall to get the kid.
Because they're at the computer store. Yeah,
to get the disc. And then Bryan Brown shows up there.
Where is it? The rocket.
Where's the rocket?
The rocket. That'd be cool. Imagine that was Rondo Hatton coming after him. Jesus, that would be scary as all.
But it culminates in this they get locked at a supermarket attached to the mall, and
nobody calls for backup. Nobody.
No.
There's like this guy's coming and waving a gun, and he even pushes. It looks like the manager of the supermarket out. He locks the door, and the manager.
Not to mention that he shot the security guard in the leg.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, he shot the security guard, but there's no backup call to no nothing.
Nobody called.
So then they're stuck in this. Yeah, they're stuck in the supermarket running around, and it's very much like almost. I was thinking like Cobra, the beginning of Cobra in the supermarket. Like it's like you're running around, and then he starts to. You're right. He starts MacGyvering in there. He's like taking stuff and
he's taking shoe polish, puts it in. I guess back in the day, you would go to the supermarket and there'd be barrels full of corn kernels. So if you wanted to, you wouldn't just buy a bag, a jar of popcorn. You would fill up your bag,
serve yourself.
Yeah, like I don't remember that as a kid, but I remember walnuts, and I remember pickles.
Yeah,
there'd be a barrel of pickles.
Some places still do that, but they're like, please wash your hands and don't touch the stuff yourself. But I was almost half expecting a voiceover. So you got to remember, shoe polish is a very flammable thing. So if you take that and add it to some, you're going to have a fun time. And then he takes the beans, he takes the hairspray, and he heats the beans up, and the beans explode.
Blow torches out of the hairspray, and throws oil on the ground and then lights it on fire. And
yeah, and then the guy just stands there and he catches fire and he rolls around. And what does he throw?
He
on
runs
himself?
towards it.
Yeah, he's like, oh, shit, fuck, that didn't work. He's like, I'm on a timetable. So it's great. And it's funny because in this movie, too, there's a little more esteem for Bryan Brown, maybe because, I've been, in the past couple of years, I've been watching some of the Gordon Ramsay shows. So for me, he's got a very Gordon Ramsay presence where he's like, I'm going to need this, this, this. And then he goes into he goes and finds the old FX. He goes like his storage locker and he gets the old FX gear and it has the old logo that was on the step truck FX, which I enjoy. And he opens it up. So he's going back to his old life, so he's getting stuff out, so it's all fun. So, Dennehy rescues him from the initial truck hit. They go back to Dennehy's hideout. And that's another thing I always remember from the trailer that I laughed at, that I remembered when he opens the door and he has, Bryan Brown going first, and he gets scared by the monster from the first movie, and that's always funny. Where Dennehy's like, "I've been waiting 5 years to do that," and then the sequence in there where they're sitting in there, and then he eats some of the peanuts, and I laughed at that out loud. Where he's like, "Don't eat that. It's been here for 5 years from who I bought it from," And that's when they start getting. That's when we get into the minutia of the plot. They start sitting there brainstorming, and they're like, "What? And then they realize what's going on, and then we get that MacGuffin of the Sistine Chapel, Michelangelo plot, and then Dennehy calls his girl up, and the old lady from the first movie. He goes down there. He entices her with tickets to Jamaica. They kiss. They're like, "Oh, that's great." They get half the disc. And then then they start getting gibberish, and what we didn't realize is that it's the hitman had come to the mall, like you said, and it began that sequence. He wasn't able to transmit all of it, but it was enough for Dennehy to read through and recognize some names and figure out that what these names are hiding. So he is so happy he takes his girl out for Chinese food in Chinatown.
Chinese food in New York.
Yeah, and he goes to this little
Toronto's version of New York's Chinatown.
Yeah. And he's like, "Hey, Ming," he's like, he knows the guy, and the guy's like, "Hello, Bryan Dennehy," and he's cooking him up like this stuff, and it was like, it made me want to go like, "This looks great, these food." And then all of a sudden, car comes around the corner and takes her out. She's not even able to bite into it. The empanada, no, it's not an empanada, but whatever he was eating, spring roll, and it was a horrific sequence. I didn't even see that coming. She gets shot in a drive-by. Yeah. Dennehy ducks. And it's so sad. That's not like, oh my gosh, she killed Dennehy's girl now, who was with us for the first FX movie. And there's no coming back. It's like, what's her face?
They're finally going to be together after 5 years.
And she's about to bite into the relationship. He's already giving her shit.
Don't put the mustard on there. That's disgusting. Yeah, what the fuck? You stupid
You're going to kill the roof of your mouth. Jesus Christ, don't you know anything? It's all gonna. She's like, "Don't worry, I like the heat. And then she's not able. Then she's killed, and then it makes it a little more personal for Dennehy.
Cut to
at that
next
point,
scene.
Which is really
Bryan
sad.
Dennehy's putting the moves on someone else.
Hey, love him and leave him. He's all over the place. And I like that the girl, the ex-wife in the movie from what's her name? Rachel Ticotin. She's driving like a Saab because you don't really see Saabs anymore. Yeah. It was an old car.
Well, that was the fun thing about this movie was seeing all the cars. Because like Bryan Brown's van, it's like, oh yeah, remember those vans? Or
it's great. The step van, and then the Monte Carlo, or the some of the cop cars, or the checkered cab. So we find out because what's his face that we brought up that was in Deep Rising and all that. He's been treating the guy who's dying in the infirmary in Rikers, and he's been getting his confidence, and then the guy's getting the last rites because he's about to die, and he's like, "Tell me where the fucking thing is. You need to tell somebody where the stuff is." So he tells him where it is, and then the next day, Bosco, who's the cop, is able to get what's his name out of Rikers, and they go to, and it's interesting for me because we find out that he hid the things in plain sight in the St. Patrick's Cathedral. So you see them double park the car, they put a police placard on, and you can see in the background Radio City Music Hall, so you know they're right by, they're like on 48th or 49th, they're right by St. Patrick's. You get an establishing shot of St. Patrick's, but then when you go inside St. Patrick's, I would bet you $5 they didn't shoot inside St. Patrick's. Yeah. Because it's so tight. Because you think if they were there, they'd give you a freaking long shot because St. Patrick's is like 5 stories high inside. It's huge. And you don't get any of that. But he goes into the confessional, and he finds in the confessional under the seat is where the guy hid these things. And then they make a run for it. They go out to Long Island, and they're on this nice estate in Long Island. And then that's when Bryan Brown and Dennehy realize that that's where they're meeting the mob, and the mob's going to take these things. And then you get, again, both Dennehy and Bryan Brown are on a let's fucking kill them all kick. Like
goes
this first
Rambo
movie.
running around.
Yeah, he goes Rambo again. He sets all these elaborate traps. And when I was little, I really remembered that trap where the guy steps on it and he gets propelled into the air and knocks himself out. That was what I remembered. But it's like he's got this little submarine. There's a guy standing on the dock. And this little sub comes out of the water, and the guy's like, what? He looks down, and the sub has a little, thing. He shoots a dart. And it's like Bryan Brown, you see, is controlling it on some controls way over, I don't know, beyond in the back. And it's like, how can he see the sub come up, let alone he's able to hit the guy in the neck perfectly, and that either kills the guy or incapacitates him. I'm like, wow, that's a really lucky shot.
Yeah.
And then you find out, then Bryan Dennehy, the mob meets up with the cops. Mob brings their own guy to authenticate the things, and they're there. And then you find out Bryan Dennehy shows up, and he's like, I'm here, and I know what you guys are doing, And then he gets a gun to his head. You find out it's Joanna Gleason. She's part of it. The DA.
Yeah, I saw that come. The minute he handed her a gun, I was like, I don't trust this girl.
Oh, with the Dylan, yeah, I didn't see it. I was along for the ride. I was like, oh my god! I was like, she's part of it too.
Yeah,
so
it's
she's
a little
in
unclear because it's like, it's set up. It's supposed to be they know ahead of time that this is where it is. I guess it's because Bryan Dennehy says at some point they got a chopper, baby.
It's a chopper, baby.
So I guess they knew where it was going to be because it would have taken Bryan Brown some time to get there and start setting everything up.
Yeah, it's intricate. It's not like he just showed up with the projector screen like in the first movie. He's got stuff hidden in the ground. So I think they say that, he's been out here days before. So he really, did a killing field. He set a whole bunch of crap up.
It's so... they could have just sent the cops in earlier. There was no reason for Bryan Brown to be running around,
killing his own, and he,
cue
and he
ball,
just to do it,
which is a funny joke.
That's exactly, and he knocks the guy out. But it's like all these things are so integral; they could go wrong so easily. But in the world of these movies, who cares? It's going to be fine. And then also we should make mention, in the back half of the movie, Dennehy's wearing a sweet leather jacket, walking around, and he's got some sweet jackets.
Leather jacket.
Yeah, so he gives the gun. They end up shooting Dennehy. They shoot him a couple times. He gets shot. He falls down dead. And I was like, oh my god, they shot Bryan Dennehy. And then spoiler alert, you learn later on that it's just that they'd done the same trick. He had one
some squibs,
a switch on his squibs, and he used it on himself, and it was blanks. He's like, I wouldn't give you a real fucking gun, you dumb bitch. I knew the whole time, and then I liked that there was what they were hiding the key the whole time, and the cat, remember, was Samson. He went over. There was a callback to the cat she owned, and that had a MacGuffin excuse. And then they think they get away. The bad guy, Bosco, grabs the mob. The mob, it's great. It's kind of admirable where you find out that the mob just wants to get the stuff back to the Vatican because of the Italian connection. They don't even want to take it themselves.
Yeah,
they're paying,
returning
I think it's $10 million. Yeah, it's $10 million, and they want to return it. So Bryan Dennehy and Bryan Brown grab the stuff, and they take the money. And, they don't have the money. What's-his-face has the money. He gets into the helicopter. Bosco, the evil captain, he leaves. And then it's a terrifying sequence because then you turn around and it's the clown flying the helicopter.
Yeah.
And not only is the clown flying the helicopter, it's the clown is he's alone up there with the thing. So Bryan Brown's able to control the clown. It's a good reveal. They're flying away. The clown it's the clown. Then the clown jumps out of the helicopter.
I think he's controlling the helicopter, which was a little bit of a callback to the kid was flying the helicopter in the apartment.
Oh, the Huey. Yeah, okay.
I think Bryan Brown is actually flying the helicopter via a remote control, like it's a remote control toy.
Oh, he jerry-rigged it. I see.
But he's also got the clown in there because he needs the clown to reach around and grab the money.
But the helicopter only comes quickly because Bryan Brown the whole time is hiding out as the landscaper. He's driving around on the little tractor, and he runs up to the helicopter. He's like, hey, mate. And then what does he knock out the helicopter? So he must be able quickly to hotwire the helicopter.
Well, he's Bryan Brown.
Hey, he's Bryan Brown. He's MacGyver. So suddenly the helicopter takes off. They're over like Long Island Sound. The guy thinks he got away. He turns around, and it's the clown. He starts freaking out. The clown grabs the money, jumps off into the water, and the guy's by himself. And that's so terrible.
They just leave him up there.
Yeah, they leave him up there. He grabs the controls, and he's trying to hold on. He's up just, he's flying around up there. So they grab the money. They got $10 million now from the clown before it sinks. They've got the bars, and then they did the switcheroo. At some point, the mob thought they got the bars and ran. But Bryan Brown at some point switched them out, and then he's like, "No, you shouldn't have switched them out because the mob is just trying to return them." And he's like, "Well, no one told me." He's like, "Fuck," So the last sequence of the movie is they go to the Vatican, and they're in the church.
They go to mass at the Vatican,
and they're going through they're taking donations at that point where they're passing the thing, and they put the coins in there, which is really nice. And it's funny, and then he's going to keep one. He pushes it, and then they walk out, and it's a nice long, they're in the square there where the Pope, like every Wednesday, gives a free mass for everybody to come see, and they walk out in this nice long shot, get into like almost like a semi-rickshaw, or maybe it's a horse and buggy, and they take off, and then that's the end of it. This nice little sequence. Let's see, what have we missed? So it's fun all around, like all that aspect of it. I mean, it gets a little silly and zany. Near the end where they when they're in Long Island and he's killing everybody, he's dispatching them very quickly. But when this movie ends up coming out, it's not as successful as the first one, and people kind of give it some shit. Like the reviews are mixed. It's like they like the gadgetry, but it's not as good as the original. Or Dennehy. It's a good movie because Dennehy, the larger than life Dennehy's this great Irish cop who gets equal screen time with Bryan Brown. So it's like there's a lot of back and forth, and people think that like I said, the Mafia Vatican connection is kind of silly, or it's far fetched. So but I enjoy it. It's all very nice, and it's especially the tech of the time, like we said, the modems and the stuff. Modems. It's like
yeah, I like it. So it was fun. Yeah. I mean, it definitely has a different tone than the first one, but not so
kind of riding off the coattails of the first.
It's not so drastically different that it's jarring. It's not like the difference in tone from like Escape from New York to Escape from LA, which is another movie that kind of uses all the same beats. Is made even longer after the first movie. Escape from LA takes basically the same beats of Escape from New York and kind of remakes it in a much more blatant way than FX2 does, but in a more lighthearted comedic way. This one I think has a little more tongue-in-cheek lightness to it, but not jarringly over the top with it. Yeah, I mean, I can see why people didn't like it as much as the original, but at the same time, I think it's a fun sequel because I don't know how you could do it again without kind of blatantly bringing attention to the fact that we've already done this. You know what I mean? By changing the tone a little bit. In a way, like I feel like it would have been less successful to try to do it in a more, in a manner that's more that's closer to the original movie. I don't know. Maybe had it come out closer to the original, people would have felt differently about it. It's hard to tell. It comes out. Nowadays as adults, we think of 6 years as nothing. I mean, it seems like we started doing this podcast almost 6 years ago, and it doesn't seem like it. But at the time, so looking back, you think of like 6 years is a long time. Especially
from 86 to 91, that's a lot of stuff's happening at that time.
5 to 6 years is a whole other kind of cinema, was happening. It's definitely
it debuted number one on the the weekend it opened, which is good. That used to mean something.
It's definitely more akin to the tone of the movies of the early 90s.
Yeah, and it's fun. There's a lot of jokes. Like there's the cocktail joke. They cut to the bar and Brian Dennehy's trying to throw the stuff in the
Brian
mixers.
Cox would have been great in this movie too.
yeah. You could have threw him into Vienna. He could have been the corrupt police captain. So there's a lot of what ifs you could have had in here. Well, that's our own what ifs, not the real what ifs. But so it's just there's a lot of inside jokes and stuff, and I think they have a great chemistry together. Brian Brown and Brian Dennehy.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen, I don't know, maybe even another FX movie, but something else where they're teamed up, because I thought they were good together.
I would have liked to seen this, Leo and, what's his name? Not Rory. It's
Raleigh.
Raleigh and Leo. I would love that. Raleigh and Leo are back, and they're solving mysteries.
I mean, we never saw the FX, the series.
Oh, yeah. So then there's a series that comes out in what, 96?
96. So it's a 96, 97 season and then a 97, 98 season. So this comes out just before you and I head to college. And apparently they turned it into a short-lived television series starring the same character. It's about, from what I can tell, it is about Raleigh Tyler, obviously, but not played by Brian Brown. I don't see a Leo in. Oh no, wait, Leo McCarthy, season 1, played by Kevin Dobson.
Yeah. It would have been nice if they brought Brian Brown in it for some kind of connection.
Yeah, like Highlander, the Highlander series. Christopher Lambert's in the pilot with the new Duncan McLeod, or with the new McLeod
from the Cotton McLeod.
But this is
but then you said
this is
what's her name's in it
we were talking about before we started rolling that this was a period, a very unique and interesting period in television history, which is like where like these syndicated low budget television shows became really big. I mean, I don't know if it started with Raimi, but Raimi and Tappert doing like Hercules and Xena. Those became really popular. Like those weren't necessarily done for network the way television kind of was done before that. It was like they'd make these shows and then they would sell them to whatever market, and then the market would air them wherever they wanted. I mean, some shows started out as network shows on Fox, like 21 Jump Street or Friday the 13th, the series, and then kind of became syndicated shows in later seasons after the network dropped them. But from our youth, you had like Kung Fu: The Legend Continues, which was one that
Alien Nation.
Although that might have actually
Swamp
been
Thing.
Alien Nation might have been a Fox show, but you're right, that very well could have been syndicated. Swamp Thing was one.
Yeah, that was a Fox show. Yeah, Swamp Thing I remember being on USA, but I was citing examples of shows that were based off of movies. Or, like movie that.
Properties.
So where suddenly you have
The Crow.
and The Crow had its own show, and
which was very much in the vein of what this show looks like when you watch like the previews and stuff of it. But it was
they did Terminator years later.
Yeah, Fox brought back Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles, but that was definitely seemed to be that was a whole another level of quality than the equivalent of like.
Silk Stockings,
or like VIP with Pamela Anderson or
Pam Grier.
And then, when we were in college, Tappert and Raimi brought back, they'd had like the Sunday or the Saturday action block, which was like Jack of All Trades with Bruce Campbell, and then like Cleopatra 2097 or something.
This is around the same time Richard Dean Anderson does Stargate, the show. That
Stargate
an epic
is a
show.
perfect example of
that
kind of television that was happening
of the era. And then you had like Deep Space Mines coming out. They had a lot of different Star Trek, Voyager. You have that. You have a lot of. So there's a lot of. It seemed it was like prior to like the streaming series. Is you have all these shows coming out and they're on different networks themselves. They're producing almost their own content.
Yeah.
And they're so you have a lot of they're picking out. I feel like there's a list of all these other shows that probably were, or they even would do. Movies that would go nowhere. There's like a 2003 or 4 Poseidon Adventure TV show pilot that Brian Brown's in. That's like 3 hours long. That I guess just was a pilot and didn't go anywhere. With Peter Weller as well, and they shot that. And that's right around. I forget what year the what's his face, the German director who redid Poseidon Adventure with Kurt Russell and everybody did, Wolfgang Petersen. That's like right around 2005 or 6 he redid it, but there was a TV show for that. So sometimes you get these pilots for these shows that don't even go anywhere. I mean, they made a Crow TV series, like you said, that's crazy. RoboCop, the TV series, they had that too. You know, we could just start naming ones that weren't there. Ghostbusters, the TV series.
Yeah, they're also, you know, it's as far as I could tell, like the biggest thing to mention about this, what I find interesting about the FX, the TV series, is the first season starred, one of the stars of it was Carrie-Anne Moss. And so it's interesting to think that she's only in the first season, and since you and I didn't discover this show, I wasn't able to really watch any of it. But she's in the first season, and that's first season is 96 to 97, and
98.
There's a very real chance that she didn't return to the second season because she might have got cast in The Matrix. By that point, and left the show to go do that.
We were saying we don't know because this passed by us if this aired in the States or if this was an Australian show or something.
Yeah. Well, looking online
she's
now,
not Australian, but
looking online now, it looks like it might have actually been a Canadian show, or there's a chance that maybe it was just shot in Canada because everything was shot in Canada then.
Yeah, even these two movies.
Yeah, but
yeah,
I would be said it could have been Australian because if you look on YouTube, there's like a commercial for the pilot, but it's for an Australian television station. That's why I was like, I don't know if it's as if it's Australia or not, because it's like the hit FX series FX premiering later tonight.
It's right after Neighbors FX. Yeah. So you don't know it's and did you see, is there a Leo character?
It looks like there is a Leo character played by an actor named Kevin Dobson, who
Kevin Dobson
you would know him if you saw him. He's really familiar. You'd be like, oh, that guy. I'm trying to look.
That dude.
I'm trying to look to see what he's in to name off the top of my head, but he was in a lot of television and stuff when we were kids.
So then you do have I wonder if they just took our idea, like we just said, and made it like a crime. They're like a crime fighting team, you know. And
he's only in the first season, but it could have been for the first season. Anyway, that's worth looking into.
Oh, Kevin Dobson. Kevin Dobson's from freaking Kojak. Kevin Dobson was Long Island Railroad. He's Crocker. He was a Long Island Railroad conductor on the LIR, and then he got a break doing Kojak. He's Crocker, and then he's also, his big show was he did Kojak in the 70s, but then he also had a other big show in the 80s. It was
Knots Landing, which was a show.
That's it. Knots Landing was a big show. Yeah, so that was his second career in the 80s. He came back for the Kojak TV movies, and he's in Knots Landing. Yeah, and so that's pretty cool that him playing the Kevin Dobson. Yeah, the Leo character. So that's pretty awesome. And yeah. So they grounded it that way. It's even, remember in the late 90s, there was a minute they even tried to redo Kojak. They had Ving Rhames. Or was that maybe 2002 or 3?
Oh, yeah, I do
but
remember that.
They did a USA show with Ving Rhames as Kojak. And that was, I don't think that past the season, but there was a lot of, it's really weird if you go back then to see all these shows that were, they were just looking for, I guess this is what kind of they're doing now. They're just looking for product to make these shows out of. That were already stuff there, like The Crow or RoboCop, for Christ's sakes, or another one. I mean, I used to watch Alienation religiously. I love that.
Yeah,
show.
I love that show too. The Alienation, and also there's that World of Worlds television show.
Which I loved. Yeah, late '80s. That was pretty crazy, and that at the time is crazy because they're basing that off the '50s show. And there's a couple seasons of that show. The guy from Predator, Ponch or whatever his name is, he's in that War of the Worlds show, and there's a lot of references to the 50s show.
Is also in a couple of episodes of MacGyver, by the way.
Yes. Yeah. It all comes around. But yeah, so it's so weird to think that, because they at one point, I think they show the alien ship from the 50s. They unearth it.
And the aliens look like the ones from the 50s.
Yeah, very terrifying. But they add that thing in where they have the aliens take over dead bodies and they have the arm come up. That used to scare me. Like, you'd see like and they would take the, it's like, come out of the chest. Yeah, it was very scary. And the people were rotting, so the three main people, they were like taken in the pilot, and the three main bad guys are like in mountains, like out in the I don't know, out west, hiding out in mountains and they're like in these rotting bodies talking. It was very scary. I should go back and watch that show. Didn't they just do a new one a couple years ago? Or they're doing now? There's a War of the Worlds series.
There is a series. I haven't seen it, but I've seen it like that. It's on.
Yeah. So have I. I should go back and watch that other one because that was terrifying. But
well,
anyway.
unfortunately, I didn't think to look to see if there's a novelization for either one of these babies. But
I didn't even think of that either. You know,
hopefully
we were doing
not.
a double feature. I mean, this is the third. We did the Ninja Turtles, like you brought up. We did do Wizard of Oz. Those were both sequels, technically. So, man, those were fun. A lot of people liked that episode. One guy didn't. Sorry.
Sorry, dude.
Sorry. I sometimes we do get. The problem is that we're going off the cuff, and we have as much as of the stuff we have. 9 times out of 10 will say the thing wrong or name or something. So sometimes you realize when we're editing, you're like, fuck.
There was
we'll put a little.
We did a sidecast.
Put a little asterisk after it.
We did a sidecast way back in the day for the Podwest. I don't know if it ever aired here, but if we ever put it on here. But the Batman one, where I was like calling the wrong Robin the whole goddamn time. We were talking about the history of Batman. We both make mistakes. We don't have, fact checkers. We don't have producers to be like, psst, like you're saying the wrong thing.
Whisper in our ear. Yeah, you said Tim Conroy instead of Tim Conway. I'm saying it's Tim Conway voicing Tim Conroy. So yeah. So
anyway,
we try to do our best.
FX, a hell of a double feature. I'm glad we did this.
Yeah, and then I want to see what the reaction is. Hopefully, I don't know. It's going to be a real interesting one to see what the audience reaction.
I didn't expect anybody to give a crap about Nighthawks, but Nighthawks did pretty well. So
sure, Mark for Death, So yeah, we're pulling these out of our ass this year. So hopefully, this little double feature will be nice, and people will harken back. Like, when's the last time you thought about FX? So great movies, and giving some of the Dennehy some love, and giving some of the Bryan Brown some love.
The
Bryans.
People always talk about the Coreys, but everybody forgets to talk about the Bryans.
The Bryans, because the Bryans had a big impact on our lives, and especially since Dennehy just passed away, which is sad.
Yeah.
So,
which we actually, I think we mentioned that we had planned on doing this even before he passed away. I think.
Yeah, we were talking about it, and then he passed away, and then we brought it up. He died, but I don't remember if we brought it up in the Black Hole special we did, or we brought it up in another special we recorded that we haven't released yet. So I don't know, but we did make mention of it while we were recording that he had just passed, and it was unrelated to COVID in my hometown of New Haven, which is sad. So God bless him. Good old Derby. It's pronounced Darby in English. Derby, Connecticut. But yeah, it's and then you bring up a good point. I don't ever remember him young. He's always, it's like Charles Durning. He's always just like this. So lovely guy, and Bryan Brown doing stuff. So be great. Maybe then there was a rumor in 2010 at the end of this that they were talking about remaking FX, the original, into another theatrical movie, but then that never came about.
It'd be tough to do now because practical effects are not as much of a thing now as they were then.
Yeah, and it's not really like people are like, that's why you wonder how the first one plays now for people, because that, we pulled the curtain back on that luster and sheen of all that. So that's all commonplace now. Yeah. But back then it was also new, witness protection or squibs and special effects, like the scene when they put it on Jerry Orbach, they have this big elaborate thing they're going to put on his face so he gets a headshot, but then you see them start putting it on and they're going to put the wig on, but then when he's done, it's just his face. Like, he looks perfect. It's like, there's nothing. It's a little funny, so you'd think he'd have a little, but, great. I mean, all across the board, Cliff DeYoung, Mason Adams, Orbach.
Great cast in the
everybody.
First one.
Yeah, and even in the second one, too, all these different people that you haven't thought of in a long time.
Well, this was a great example of, I feel like, what the original intention of this show was, which was to, go back and revisit movies that, maybe we don't think about so often, but that we all have, that people of our generation have nostalgia for. Through the years we've gotten caught up in, we tried to do an eclectic selection of movies, but obviously the ones that most people get excited about and listen to are the ones for movies that are super popular, like Star Wars or Indiana Jones. And so we do those, but the original concept of the show was we were going to do really abstract things, and then we realized that you can't do Mind Warp as your second episode because nobody's seen Mind Warp.
Yeah, or the Flash TV show, pilot for 1990. But also, we were doing stuff in our comfort zone, like Batman. It's like we were hitting big movies for
and
our
even something
for
like
our generation.
This is definitely for me in the same area, the same genre of like Remo Williams.
Remo, I was going to say Remo Williams.
It's
exactly.
like they're about
Remo.
the same time. They're movies that like I remember very fondly from either going to my dad's house and seeing them on cable or renting them at my dad's house. And they're like fun, adventure-y type movies, but they're not the kinds of movies that people talk about a lot nowadays. You know what I mean? They kind of have almost gotten forgotten a little bit, aside from people like you and me and you know, members of our listening audience who remember these movies fondly also.
Yeah, especially with Remo. Remo has such a content of those books he's based off of, so I don't know how those are surviving, but he had like 100. I forgot how there was a crazy insanity output of books.
The score
for the Remo character.
The score for Remo just got remastered and a new release on CD, and I think released on vinyl for the first time recently.
Is that Conti too?
No, that was Craig Saffin, who also did Last Starfighter, which we did on this show a long time ago. He also did Friday the 13th Part 4. And he scored, calling it back to earlier in this episode, who I actually name dropped him. He scored Fade to Black, which is one of the posters on Bryan Brown's
wall. Oh, there you go. That's funny. You know, and it's just you look at all these people; it all connects. Clifton Young was on The Craft. We did that last year. He was in Flight of the Navigator, which we did some years ago. So you look at all these people that just randomly show up that we're like, oh yeah, it was him, or you know, Mason Adams. You know, all things we've So it's
as we get further and further into doing the show, there's these connections seem to present themselves even more. There's always like, now I feel like we're always saying like, I'm testing you. Like, do you remember what episode we did?
I'm like, no.
Where this abstract character actor from 1979 was in?
Art Carney. So we hope you like this episode, this double feature. You could check us out on all the social medias. We have our own page, Saturday Night Movie Sleepovers. We have our Facebook page. We have our Instagram page. We have our Twitter page. You can like us, leave us comments, message us, suggest stuff, be part of the growing community. We're available on a lot of platforms that wherever you're listening for the podcast. We're thinking about doing some other fun things in the future that we might tell you about coming up. I've got Blood in the Streets, my book that came out some years ago. You can get that in paperback, ebook, or audiobook. It's a great read nowadays with everything going on. It's a historical fiction and thriller. But, if people are still not working, it gives you something to do. And Blake, what do you got?
Score to Death, Conversations with Some of Horror's Greatest Composers is my book, where I interview composers who have done horror movie scores as well as many other scores. I've kind of started dabbling with doing Score to Death, the podcast again, like I said earlier in this episode. I interviewed Bill Conti and Ted Nugent. I'm not set to do it on a regular basis anymore, but kind of easing my way back into it. I might be interviewing somebody pretty cool in a couple of days.
Easy, baby. And you get your new book coming out.
And so far, so good. As far as I can tell, Score to Death 2 should be released in the fall of 2020. So coming up hopefully soon, if it doesn't get postponed because of the state of the world at the moment. But we seem to be on track as far as I can tell. So
that's good. Hopefully it'll get out before the world ends.
But I thank you very much for listening. This was a very fun walk down memory lane for me.
Oh, it brought it back. Man. What do we got coming up next month? I don't even remember.
I'll tell you once we stop recording, because that's one that I am very excited about.
Let me know. Let me know now. Okay, I got to find out what it is. So, everybody, we hope you're staying safe. We hope you're doing well. Take care of yourselves. Be kind to each other, everybody, please. We will see you soon. Please, check out our back catalog. We've got a crap load of stuff. If you're just joining us and you like us, we've got a lot of content out. We even have some people who say they've listened to our episodes more than once, which is really nice to hear. That's really cool. Sometimes we have to listen to them more than once to edit them, so that sometimes is fun. So, keep us alive. Let people know about who don't listen to this. Let your friends know. Tell your parents. Get your parents' permission before you dial. And, before you know it, we'll be seeing you very soon next month with a brand new episode of Saturday Night Movie Sleepovers, the podcast.
Later.